Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now get comfortable and relax. Case 1. The Shafia family fled war and instability, hoping to build a new life in Canada. They were originally from Afghanistan, a country where traditions dictate fate and family honor outweighs personal freedom. On the surface, they appeared to be an ordinary immigrant family, a father who had achieved financial success, 2 wives and 7 children. But behind this image of prosperity lay a harsh reality. Control, fear, and strict discipline became an inseparable part of their lives. Until one day the family found itself at the center of one of the most shocking and tragic crimes in the country's history. Mohammed Shafia was born into a poor Afghan family. His father passed away when he was just 2 years old, leaving his mother to care for the household alone. From a young age, he understood that survival required resilience. Education was a luxury beyond his reach, so he started working early. At first, he helped his mother with household chores, then moved on to repairing appliances. Eventually, he realized there were other ways to make money, by buying and reselling goods at a profit. Mohammed's business quickly expanded. He dealt in electronics, furniture, and automobiles, constantly finding new ways to grow his wealth. Lacking formal education, he relied on his instincts and sharp business sense to seize every opportunity. As his financial situation improved, he decided it was time to start a family. Rona came from a respected and well-off background. Her family valued traditions, but also ensured their daughters received an education. She was raised in a nurturing environment, yet her future was already determined. Like most young women in her social circle, she was expected to marry whomever her parents chose for her. When her parents announced that she would be marrying Mohammed Shafia, she had no say in the matter. She accepted their decision as an obligation. The wedding was a grand affair, held at one of the finest hotels in Kabul, with hundreds of guests in attendance. To the outside world, it was a union between 2 honorable families, but no one asked Rona what she truly wanted. After the wedding, her life changed drastically. She was now expected to obey her husband, manage the household, and fulfill all of his expectations. Years passed, but no children were born into the marriage, and Rona's position in the family became uncertain. In Afghan society, a woman's worth is often tied to her ability to have children. Mohammed grew increasingly frustrated, and rumors about Rona's inability to conceive began spreading among relatives. Over time, his frustration turned into cold indifference, creating a distance between them that only grew wider. After 7 years in a marriage without children, Mohammed made the decision to take a second wife. Tuba was younger, more obedient, and most importantly, able to give him heirs. As soon as she became his wife, she gave birth to their first son, followed by another child. With each passing year, her influence in the household grew, while Rona was pushed further into the background of family life. Mohammed Shafia established strict rules in his household, where everyone was expected to follow his will. No one dared to challenge him, and any disobedience was met with humiliation or physical punishment. He controlled the finances, made decisions for all family members, and demanded absolute respect. The women in the home existed strictly within the boundaries he set. Tuba didn't just support these rules, she reinforced them. She fully embraced the role of the primary wife, completely overshadowing Rona. Her authority in the house became absolute. She managed the children, the finances, and even Rona's fate. Over the years, her treatment of the first wife became even harsher. She isolated her, limiting her interactions with the children, and denying her even the most basic personal freedoms. Hamed, the eldest son, became an enforcer of control over his sisters. From an early age, he was raised in an environment that upheld strict patriarchal traditions, where men were the leaders and women were expected to obey without question. His father instilled in him the belief that it was his duty to watch over his sisters, ensuring they followed the family's rules and reporting any perceived disobedience. The sisters, Zainab, Sahar, and Geethi, lived under constant surveillance. Any attempt to defy their father or Hamed resulted in punishment. They weren't allowed to make friends, leave the house freely, or even choose their own clothing. Mohammed didn't see them as individuals with their own aspirations. He saw them as an extension of the family, expected to uphold his idea of honor. When the family moved to Canada, many assumed this would give the children a chance at a better life, but even a change in country didn't alter the way the household operated. If anything, the control became even more rigid. Muhammad was aware that his children were now in an environment where women had rights, so he tightened his grip to maintain authority. The daughters began to realize that life outside their home was different from what they had always known. They saw their classmates interacting freely, choosing their own clothes, making decisions about their futures. But inside their own home, nothing had changed. Haim became even stricter. He monitored his sisters to ensure they didn't adopt Western habits. He checked their phones, observed their behavior at school, and reported everything to their parents. Rona had hoped that moving to a new country would change her circumstances, but her fate remained the same. She didn't know the language, had no legal documents, and no job. Without a passport or financial independence, she remained entirely under the family's control. Canada did not bring the Shafia family freedom. It became a new territory where their old rules still applied. Zainab, the eldest daughter of Muhammad Shafia, was the first to openly defy her family. Despite the strict control imposed on her, she secretly began a relationship with a young man named Ammar. He was older, of Pakistani descent, and most importantly, not someone her father would ever approve of. Their connection started with passing notes, then evolved into email exchanges, and eventually led to secret meetings. Zainab knew how dangerous her actions were. At home, she was constantly watched by Haim, and even at school, she couldn't feel safe. Yet, her love for Ammar made her willing to take the risk. When her father left for a business trip, she saw an opportunity and invited Ammar to the house, believing no one would find out. Haim Shafia accidentally noticed a pair of unfamiliar shoes in the hallway. Immediately realizing there was an outsider in the house, he wasted no time reporting it to his parents. Ammar managed to escape, but Zainab faced severe consequences. She was physically punished and confined to her room for several months, forbidden from stepping outside. While she remained in isolation, Sahar tried to fight for her independence in a different way. She didn't engage in open rebellion, but gradually distanced herself from the traditional expectations imposed by her family. At school, she removed her headscarf, wore makeup, and dressed in ways that were strictly forbidden at home. She also formed a close bond with Ricardo, a young man from Honduras, who was the complete opposite of the kind of husband her parents would have chosen for her. Sahar longed for freedom and seriously planned her escape. She and Ricardo discussed leaving for another country where her family wouldn't be able to find her. Her idea was to make it seem like she had gone to Honduras, while, in reality, she planned to cross into the United States. But one unexpected moment shattered her plans. One evening, she was having dinner at a cafe with Ricardo when she suddenly noticed her brother watching her from another table. He didn't say a word or approach her, but his presence alone sent a chilling message. She was now in serious danger. When she returned home, she braced herself for the worst. Her father already knew everything. There were no discussions, only punishment. After enduring physical aggression, she was forbidden from even attending school. Realizing that escaping could put her life at risk, Sahar understood that getting away from her family would be far more difficult than she had imagined. Amid all this turmoil, Giddy, the youngest of the sisters, expressed her defiance in a different way. She didn't try to run away or pursue a secret relationship. Instead, she acted out at school. Her aggressive behavior, frequent absences, and open defiance of teachers became her way of resisting. She wanted someone to notice that something was deeply wrong in her home. She was called to the principal's office, followed by a meeting with social services. But when her parents were invited to discuss the situation, they claimed that Giddy's behavior was the result of negative Western influence. They assured the social workers that they would handle the matter themselves. The daughters' attempts to resist the strict family rules only made their situation worse. Their father and brother became convinced that they had lost control over them, and that meant they had to be punished. The conflict between the sisters and their family had reached a breaking point. Their fate was now sealed. When Zainab, Sahar, and Giddy tried to break free from their family's control, they knew the risks involved. But they never expected that the very system meant to protect them would prove powerless against the authority of their father and brother. Zainab was the first to seek help. After months of confinement, she realized that her only chance for survival was to leave for good. She escaped from home and found refuge in a shelter for women in crisis. For the first time, she felt safe, but her disappearance did not go unnoticed. Ahmad immediately contacted the police, claiming that his sister had been kidnapped. He accused her friend Ammar, hoping to have him arrested. When the police located Zainab, she told them the truth. She had left on her own to escape her family. Law enforcement did not force her to return home, but they also failed to provide her with real protection. After seeing what happened to her sister, Sahar tried to find her own way out. She was too afraid to go directly to the police, but she made a call to Child Protective Services. She spoke about the harsh restrictions, the constant threats, and the fact that she feared for her life. The caseworkers listened, but in the end, they decided that intervention wasn't necessary since she was close to turning 18. They offered her temporary shelter, but that only meant one thing. Once her stay was over, she would have to go back home. She knew that if she returned, the punishment would be far worse than anything she had endured before. Terrified, Sahar declined their help. In that moment, she realized the system could not protect her. Rona was the only one who truly understood how much danger the sisters were in. But she was powerless to stop it. She too lived in constant fear. She knew that Muhammad and Tuba no longer saw their daughters as obedient members of the family. They saw them as a threat to the family's honor, and she understood that any attempt to intervene would be useless. After everything that had happened, it became clear within the Shafia household that the daughters no longer followed the rules imposed on them. They had crossed the line. They had openly rejected the traditional way of life. Their actions were seen not just as defiance, but as a serious threat to the family's reputation. Muhammad couldn't allow rumors about his defiant daughters to spread among acquaintances. In Afghan culture, such stories traveled fast, and the family risked losing respect. What angered him the most was that their open disobedience was happening in Canada, a country where he couldn't control his daughter's surroundings the way he could back in Afghanistan. But to the family, the biggest threat came from Zainab. She hadn't just disobeyed. She had run away. That was unacceptable. She was living on her own, making her own choices, no longer following her father's rules. To them, this was the ultimate betrayal. Tuba knew that forcing her to return wouldn't work, so she devised a way to bring Zainab back willingly. She called her daughter and convinced her that their father had changed his mind. She told her that he had given his blessing for her to marry Ammar, and now they could officially be together. On May 18, 2009, a religious wedding ceremony took place at an Islamic center. The next day, Zainab had her hair styled and decorated her hands with henna. Her uncle drove her to a restaurant, and on the way, he made one final attempt to persuade her to reconsider the marriage. But her response was firm. That freedom, however, was short-lived. None of the groom's family members attended the ceremony. Ironically, they also disapproved of the marriage. Tuba was in tears, overwhelmed with embarrassment. She collapsed, fainting from the humiliation. People poured water on her, trying to revive her. Seeing this, Zainab threw herself into her mother's arms and said, "If you're against the marriage, I'll walk away from him." Zainab requested a divorce, and Ammar agreed. "I can't bring shame to my family," he said. The cleric declared them divorced right there in the restaurant. They had been husband and wife for only 24 hours. After the annulment, Zainab's relationship with Ammar Wahid deteriorated significantly. Under intense pressure from her family, she was forced to cut off all contact with him. The restrictions on her life became even stricter. Her movements were monitored, her interactions controlled. Ammar tried to stay in touch, but her relatives made it impossible. Eventually, their relationship ended completely, adding even more stress and emotional turmoil to Zainab's life. Zainab realized that she would never be given true freedom. She lost all hope of gaining independence. After this event, tensions between Zainab and her family escalated even further, ultimately leading to tragic consequences. This was the point of no return. If their father had previously hesitated, hoping his daughters would eventually recognize their mistake and conform, he now saw that they had no intention of returning to the family's rules. Hamid insisted that waiting any longer was not an option. In his view, betrayal could not be forgiven, and women who had tarnished the family's honor had to face consequences. He believed their father had been too lenient for too long, and if they didn't act immediately, the family's reputation would be in serious jeopardy. The decision was made. Their daughters would no longer have the right to live. Now, the only thing left was to plan how to carry it out. Muhammad didn't want to draw attention. He knew that a crime like this couldn't be impulsive. It had to look like an accident. And so the planning began, leading to an unthinkable tragedy. Preparations started weeks in advance. Muhammad, Tauba, and Hamid carefully discussed how to execute their plan. One of the key steps was acquiring a second vehicle, a Nissan Sentra. Officially, it was purchased for convenience, but in reality, it was intended to play a crucial role in what was about to happen. To avoid suspicion, they decided to organize a family trip to Niagara Falls. This would create the appearance of a family trying to reconnect after conflicts and tensions. A vacation together would give the impression that everything was fine and that they were working to mend their relationships. Zainab, Sahar, Jiddy, and Rona had no choice but to go. Even if they had doubts, resisting their father's decision was pointless. From the beginning of the trip, they felt uneasy, but none of them could have imagined that this journey would be their last. Everything went according to plan. For several days, the family visited tourist attractions, took photos, and engaged in casual conversations with strangers. It was all carefully orchestrated so that later, no one would suspect there had been any hostility between them. In the early hours of June 30th, 2009, two vehicles, a Nissan Sentra and a Lexus RX, left the Kingston East Motel and headed toward the Kingston Mills locks. Inside the Nissan Sentra were Zainab, Sahar, Jiddy, and Rona. The exact driver at that moment remains unknown, but it was most likely Zainab, as she was the eldest and had a driver's license. They were being followed at a short distance by Mohammed Shafia, Tuba, and their son Hamed in the Lexus RX. They kept enough space between the vehicles to avoid drawing suspicion. When the Nissan Sentra parked near the locks, Mohammed Shafia stepped out of his car and approached the Nissan. Zainab either voluntarily moved from the driver's seat or was forced to exit. Tuba then took the wheel of the Nissan, staying inside with the victims. This was done to keep them from suspecting anything. Seeing their mother beside them, they felt no immediate danger. Meanwhile, Mohammed and Hamed returned to the Lexus and drove to a nearby motel, where they planned to create the illusion that the family was simply stopping for the night before continuing their trip. At the motel, they woke the manager and rented 2 rooms, but their responses about the number of guests were inconsistent. They couldn't decide whether there were 6 or 9 people in their group, which raised suspicions. After dropping off the 3 youngest family members, Mohammed and Hamed got back into the Lexus and returned to the locks. As soon as Tuba saw their headlights in the darkness, she quickly got out of the Nissan and ran toward them. This was the signal the time had come. At this moment, the women inside the car were still alive, unaware that they were trapped in a deadly situation. What happened next could only be partially reconstructed during the investigation. It remains unclear whether the victims were harmed inside the car or outside of it. However, forensic evidence revealed crucial details. 3 of them, Rona, Jiddy, and Zainab, had sustained head injuries, likely inflicted to render them unconscious before they were submerged. Sahar, however, appeared to have resisted. There were no signs of head trauma on her body, suggesting that she may have remained conscious longer than the others. One by one, the victims were either drowned in the water or placed inside the car after losing consciousness. Their bodies were then repositioned in the Nissan. The front seats were reclined to accommodate them. At this stage, Mohammed, Tuba, and Hamed began staging the scene to make it appear like a tragic accident. Their plan was to send the vehicle into the water, making it seem as if it had rolled in by mistake. One of them started the engine, shifted the car into neutral, and exited, expecting the Nissan to roll into the canal on its own. But something went wrong. The car got stuck on the edge of the concrete ledge. The front wheels had gone over, but instead of plunging into the water, the vehicle remained suspended in place. This was a major setback. If anyone had appeared at that moment, they would have been caught at the scene. One of them reached through the open driver's window and turned off the ignition. They realized that the Nissan wouldn't go into the water without additional force. The only way to complete the plan was to use the Lexus to push the Nissan into the canal. They got into the Lexus, accelerated, and rammed the Nissan from behind. The impact was strong. The SUV's left headlight shattered, leaving fragments at the scene. With that final push, the Nissan Sentra plunged into the water, taking the 4 women with it. Believing their crime was now complete, they began covering their tracks. They attempted to pick up the broken pieces of the Lexus's headlight, but couldn't gather them all. Then, they quickly left the scene and returned to motel to create the illusion that they had spent the night there and knew nothing about the disappearance. Early on the morning of June 30th, 2009, a Kingston Canal worker noticed something unusual. Beneath the water, he could see the roof of a submerged car. The man immediately contacted the authorities. Emergency responders and divers arrived at the scene. When they pulled the vehicle from the water, they discovered the bodies of 4 women inside. None of them had attempted to escape. There were no broken windows, no signs of anyone trying to open the doors. It wasn't long before authorities identified the victims, 3 sisters and their relative. Zainab Shafia was found in the front passenger seat, her head tilted forward. Her black cardigan, soaked after hours underwater, was on backward. Her younger sister, Sahar, was in the back of the sunken Nissan Sentra. Jitty's lifeless body floated above the driver's seat, one arm resting on the headrest. The window next to her was fully open. Rona was hunched in the middle of the back seat. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt. None of them were. The initial inspection of the car immediately raised questions. The vehicle was in first gear, but the engine was off. The keys were still in the ignition. The seatbelts were unused, which was strange. People instinctively grab onto something in an emergency, but here there were no signs of struggle. At the same time, 3 people walked into the Kingston police station: Mohammed Shafia, his wife Tauba, and their son Hamed. They reported that 4 women were missing. Their story was simple. The women had taken the car keys during the night and left without permission. They claimed the most likely explanation was that they had tried to run away, but something had gone wrong. At first, the story seemed believable. The family explained that Zainab and Sahar had often shown defiance and clashed with their parents. If they had indeed attempted to run away, they might have panicked, lost control of the vehicle, and accidentally driven into the water. However, the first pieces of evidence quickly cast doubt on this version. First, the location of the car. The Kingston Canal was not a road, a highway, or even a place where someone could end up by accident. It was a controlled waterway system, and reaching it without knowing the area was nearly impossible. Second, the condition of the bodies. If the women had been alive when the car entered the water, they would have undoubtedly tried to escape. But there were no signs of struggle, no scratches on the windows, no attempts to open the doors. This led investigators to question the family's account. The theory of an accidental crash was beginning to fall apart. At the same time, detectives started reviewing statements from the staff at the motel where the Shafia family had stayed. It turned out that no one had seen the women leaving the building. Surveillance cameras did not record them exiting. The suspicions deepened. Someone was clearly lying. Police continued their investigation without rushing to conclusions. But even at this early stage, it was clear. This was not just a tragic accident. It was a carefully planned crime staged to look like one. During questioning, Mohammed, Tauba, and Haim struggled with details. At first, they claimed the women had left during the night. But when asked for the exact time, none of them could provide a clear answer. Their statements about when they supposedly left kept changing. Hamed insisted that he had been asleep and hadn't heard anything, while Tauba claimed there had been noise in the house that night. Later, she added that she had woken up and seen the women leaving, only to contradict herself by saying she didn't remember. Mohammed initially stated that he had been in a different motel room at the time, but security footage showed otherwise. Police conducted a thorough examination of the car found in the water. At the scene, they discovered fragments of broken headlights. However, these fragments did not belong to the submerged vehicle. This meant that another car had been present and could have played a role in the incident. Forensic experts took a closer look at the front of the family's Lexus SUV. The damage patterns on the vehicle matched the broken fragments found at the scene. Further analysis revealed that the Lexus had dents and impact marks consistent with a collision with another car. These findings confirmed a new theory. The victims had not simply been left in the vehicle, they had been deliberately pushed into the water. Investigators knew they needed stronger evidence. They decided to place a listening device in the Shafia family's vehicle, hoping the suspects would incriminate themselves. A few days later, the police got exactly what they were looking for. The recordings captured conversations in which Mohammed openly expressed satisfaction with what had happened. He stated that his daughters had brought shame to the family, and that honor had been restored. Tuba supported his words, saying they had done what was necessary. Hamed, meanwhile, repeatedly insisted that their actions had been justified. These recordings became key pieces of evidence. They proved that the crime had been premeditated, and that the family had deliberately taken the lives of 4 women. The evidence left no room for doubt. The police were now ready to make their move. Mohammed Shafia, his wife Tuba, and their son Hamed were arrested on July 22, 2009. That day, they had no idea that law enforcement had already gathered enough proof to charge them. The family was preparing to fly to Dubai, but they were taken into custody just before departure. Mohammed never saw it coming. Until the last moment, he believed that the deaths of his daughters and Rona had been successfully staged as an accident. But the investigation had stayed one step ahead. When they were read their charges, first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder, They tried to remain composed, but their expressions told a different story. The trial began in January 2012. It lasted 3 months and drew enormous public attention. Prosecutors presented undeniable evidence that the crime had been meticulously planned. The most damning evidence was the recorded conversations in the family's vehicle. In them, Mohammed proudly stated that his daughters had gotten what they deserved, while Tuba and Hamed fully supported this sentiment. These recordings shattered any remaining doubts about their guilt. In addition to the recordings, physical evidence was presented. Investigators demonstrated that the family's Lexus had damage consistent with a collision involving the Nissan Sentra. Experts confirmed that the SUV had been used to push the victim's car into the water. Witnesses were called to testify, social workers, teachers, and friends of the sisters, who revealed that they had spoken about the harsh treatment they faced from their father and brother. Many knew they lived in fear, but no one could have imagined it would end in such a horrific way. During the trial, Mohammed showed no remorse. He insisted that the court had misinterpreted the situation and continued to claim that his daughters had brought shame to the family. Tuba, who initially portrayed herself as a grieving mother, later changed her strategy and began denying any involvement. Hamed attempted to present himself as a victim of his father's influence, but the recorded conversations completely dismantled his defense. After 15 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict, guilty. Mohammed, Tuba, and Hamed were sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 25 years. They appealed, hoping the ruling would be overturned, but the court upheld the conviction. Their crime was classified as an act of so-called honor-based violence, a cold and calculated crime carried out in the name of control and tradition. The family that had once sought to preserve its honor lost everything. Their names became synonymous with cruelty, and the Shafia case remains one of the most horrifying examples of such crimes in Canadian history. After the arrests of Mohammed, Tuba, and Hamed, the remaining Shafia children were left in a difficult situation. As they were still minors, they could not be left without guardianship. Canadian authorities placed them under state protection. Social services took responsibility for their well-being. Their identities and locations were kept confidential to protect them from public scrutiny and potential retaliation from extended relatives. Some family members in Afghanistan attempted to intervene, demanding that the children be returned to their biological relatives, but Canadian law shielded them from such claims. The younger Shafia children were given the opportunity to grow up away from the harmful environment they had known. They changed their names and started new lives, but their past was forever marked by a devastating tragedy. The fact that their parents and brother committed such a crime became a permanent shadow over them, something they could never fully escape. Their current whereabouts remain unknown, but one thing is certain: they were given a chance at a different life, unlike their lost sisters and Rona. Case 2. On the morning of May 25, 2012, 37-year-old Kojo Bonsafo Ajaikoti, an international student from Ghana, went out for a morning jog and never came home. Kojo has spent the last 6 months living with the family of one of his friends, Dr. Anthony Kenua, a physics lecturer at Morgan State University, and when Kojo failed to return home that evening, the family grew concerned. That concern evolved into outright fear when the family discovered that Kojo's wallet, ID, and phone were still in the basement. Even if Kojo had decided to go out somewhere without telling the family, there was no chance he would have left these items behind. Feeling that something was wrong, the Kenuas called the police. They had no idea just how wrong things were. Although the police responded immediately to the report and sent detectives over to interview the Kenua family and search the property, nothing of note was found, apart from a dead fox in a container behind the Kenua's home. This curious finding will later prove integral in the most sickening way. Eventually, cadaver dogs are brought in to go over the wooded area behind the Kenua's home, but they find nothing. The only thing of note uncovered is the fact that red pepper flakes have been sprinkled on the ground in the house, specifically in the basement. This is another detail that will prove crucial later. It seemed like the case was rapidly getting cold, but an unexpected discovery was about to change everything. For days after Kojo's disappearance, Jared Kenua, the youngest boy in the family, was down in the basement when he found something that made his blood run cold. After confronting his older brother Alex about it, Jared told the rest of the family what he'd found, and the police were once again quickly called to the scene. In an interview with detectives, Jared revealed the nightmare he found in the basement. 2 pans for baking, and in between them was a cutting board. So I lifted up the pans, and in it I saw 3 different objects, and they were kind of black with some gravy substance looking at them. And it looked like hands and a head. And as soon as I saw that, I really couldn't distinguish whether it was a face or somebody's face I knew or something. But I looked at it, and I stopped myself. I stopped what I was doing. I went upstairs, and I asked Alex, come down here. And I asked him, what is it? And he said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's none of your business and all that stuff. And he started avoiding my question. Alongside interviewing Jared, detectives also spoke with Alex about this disturbing and suspicious discovery. As Alex has read his rights, the interview hits a slight snag. Are you willing to talk to me after being advised of your rights? And that's, again, a yes or a no question. Same thing as the one on top. Okay, and then your notes are right there. Oh wait, you've got to read that last one. What this one says is, have I threatened you or forced you in any way to make you talk to me? Yes. Have I really, or yes or no? Yes. Do you think I did threaten you? Because I'm not trying to threaten you. I'm not threatening, but I'm just taking it as a yes. Well, tell me then, because I don't want you to feel that way. So if you feel that way, I want to make sure you know that I'm not threatening you, and I'm not trying to scare you or anything like that. I can't find a room in an undisclosed location with behind a locked door with a CCTV. The door's not locked. No, I'm a detective. I don't know. I'm threatened right now. Okay, well, let me make you feel a little bit better then. The door is not locked, okay? I'm a detective. Well, I'm going to explain it to you, okay? We're not in an undisclosed location. We're in Forest Hill. It's about 20 minutes from where you live, okay? It's an industrial park, and the door's not locked. And I am not armed. I don't have a gun on me at all. You can see right there. And neither does that detective. Though there are different policies, it's typically recommended that officers aren't armed in the interrogation room. It helps calm the person being interviewed and prevents them from saying they were threatened or they were scared because the officer was armed. As well, officers don't want to wear a gun in order to lower the chance that someone takes it from them. Well, we come in with a few mines and weapons, though. Well, I can't take my mind away. There's no guns in here. Okay, so you understand I'm not trying to threaten you? Right. Okay. I'll sign that. Okay. Less than 10 minutes into the interview and Alex is already handling this differently than most people in this situation would. But is this strange behavior an indication that he knows something about Kojo's disappearance? Can you tell me what happened? Yes, last week I collected a jackal, foxes like roadkill. And I usually, trap animals. That's what sometimes I can catch, sometimes a jackal. But this morning I saw it's like a wild dog. I can give you a description for a wild dog. It's not a wild dog. It's like a coyote. Bull-typed. It's like they have a foot on it. Maybe had like a less than an inch on their foot. But my cat was outside, and I just happened to be upstairs looking outside, and I seen a coyote. So I figured, you know what? I remember catching that fox that was roadkill. So I figured let me gut it up and, try and catch it. Alex continues to ramble about the wild dog for several minutes, derailing the conversation and giving the officers a lot of seemingly useless information. But there's actually a sneaky reason he's done this. You realize what your brother thought though, right? Or thinks. He thinks that it's pieces of Kojo is what he thought. Did you realize he thought that? Or you didn't realize until I just said so? He said that he saw, it was something that was black and he can't really describe it. And he said he wasn't sure. And he mentioned it to my father and mother. Okay, nothing but no human skull. Human what now? Skull, or human parts, or anything. Because he said there was a head. And I said, there's a jackal head right there. Coyote forks. And the paws and the insides. I couldn't bring the intestines in because they're already eating. So it's just parts of it. And besides, I wanted the skin to try and make like a dream catcher. Were they parts of Kojo? No. But the dogs that came out today that were searching and everything, I'm sure they'd have picked a scent, Alex is incredibly confident when he uses the cadaver dogs to assert his innocence. But why is he so sure the dogs won't pick up a scent in the basement? One obvious explanation actually has to do with the red pepper flakes that were found scattered throughout the floor of the basement. It's a commonly believed yet disproven myth that red pepper flakes can fool cadaver dogs into not smelling human remains. What they can do is potentially burn the dog's nose. But this would still not prevent them from indicating remains if there were any. However, as will later be uncovered, there is a far more sickening reason that the dogs didn't pick up on anything in the Kenua home. Still, it's entirely possible Alex believed the myth about red pepper, especially given some of his self-recorded videos. Now the question is about planning and thinkable, because now how are the new powers going to use nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons? Sooner or later, the countryside is going to be torn in battlefields. It already is, and battlefields are slowly erupting. Protect your neck. Nobody is safe no matter where you are. It could be even in your own home. It could be even in your own school. It could be anywhere. Why would your brother think there were human parts? Because he's been around animals. He said you guys used to cut up animals back on the farm, or something like that. We've cut up goats not far from here in Ohio. But he seems to think that what he saw tonight were human parts as opposed to animal. Well, I showed him the carcass that I actually had, so... He's just confused, you think? Honestly, he's confused. He's very smart. Alex quickly steals a glance at the detectives after saying this, potentially trying to measure their reaction to his self-contradictory response. With Alex adamantly sticking to his story about the cut-up animal parts, detectives decide to switch gears. You know where Kojo's at? After he mentioned his case, because I remember several years ago he had a charge, I think it was something or not. I don't know the details specific. That's the only details. I don't know his case. And he never spoke about it even when he went to immigration. Alex's rambling can also be seen many times throughout his strange and disturbing vlogs. The sun in the sky. The sun is a very powerful energy. The solar flares it can deliver to this planet itself. It can knock out every electronics, every mechanical, electromechanical apparatuses around the world, even in the sky itself. Airplanes will not fly. Cell phone towers knocked out. In an attempt to deal with Alex's knack for rambling, the detectives decide to be direct with him. Alex, did you kill Kojo? No. Did you cut him up? No. Because you're interested to see what... you said you dissect these things surgically, did you? No. I've seen morticians do that. Right. I mean, because you have the curiosity to do it yourself? No. The curiosity, my curiosity, that's not the extent I thought. I've been exposed to body parts that are in the H. I've seen people's brains blown out. I've seen people dead and everything. Whatever. Where is that? My shock memories. On TV, you're saying? Shock memories. On TV? I don't know what you mean. Shock memories as a TV program? Shock memories, yeah. Some of them are on the internet. Sensing that they're not going to get anything useful from Alex, detectives end the interview and conduct a search of the Kenua home, completely unaware of the horror they were about to walk into. In the basement, officers retrieved the charred aluminum roasting pans that had allegedly had human remains in them. Not far from the pans were what appeared to be clippings of short, dark hair that had been wrapped in a paper towel and thrown in a wastebasket. In the laundry room, they find a roasting bag that could usually be used for poultry, scarred by the same charred residue seen on the pan and treated with an oily cleaner. In the room, they also found a camo t-shirt with what appeared to be bloodstains down the front. But this is only the beginning of the disturbing discoveries. Alex's bedroom is locked with a deadbolt and marked with a wooden sign reading, "Either some greater force of terror than death must be devised, or death will not be enough for coercion." Observe the sunlight. The shadows. The shadow. The cold shadow. In Alex's bedroom, officers find the shockumentaries he mentioned, as well as multiple leather whips, a large hunting knife, and 2 machetes. These discoveries are overshadowed by what the officers find next. On the underside of Alex's mattress is a massive bloodstain, one so large that officers immediately theorized that whoever the blood belongs to is almost certainly dead. While they weren't able to find the body parts that Jared claimed to have seen, everything else the officers found in the basement points towards Alex being involved in Kojo's death. Eager to find out the truth behind this mystifying case, detectives sat back down with Alex for another interview. His explanation for the blood is shocking, to say the least. You and I and Chris. Again, we're not here to get a confession from you, or anything like that. One of the things that I ask you is I want to learn about you, right? Because let me explain why. There is psychology to that, and I'm going to tell you why. Because, let's say that someone robs a bank, and I find out that this person has a wife that's dying of cancer. Is that the same as a guy that comes in wearing a mask and puts a gun in somebody's head because he wants to get a party out with that one? Are they the same two people? It's a crime. It's a crime. Already, this detective appears to be taking a more strategic approach than the previous detectives, setting the stage for a conversation that will make Alex actually want to confess. One way he does this is by quickly introducing the idea that committing a crime does not make someone evil, and that certain people may commit crimes for reasons that are morally justified. The officer doesn't believe this, but is saying it to try to get Alex to admit to something. Unlike in his last interview, however, the detectives are ready for his rambling. Do you know what forensic science is all about? I don't believe what the TV says too much about it. However, I'm aware that it's a lot of things for science. Do you believe that? Do you actually believe that an X-ray is an indicator to identify other individuals? You can get an X-ray because you have the XY chromosomes, and you can also identify, the GMO seeds from it. You can extract it, so you can tell the difference between the blood of a fox and the blood of a human being? Yes. What do you think the blood of your mattress should be? That's the blood of my period. Your period? Yeah, my woman's period. And what woman would that be? Oh, she doesn't say anymore. She said that the blood that was on the box, the red box, that's the fox blood there. What if I told you that wasn't? What if I told you that that was human blood? I have to show you exactly. Was it dried up, especially? There's a little bit of breath. Either that was fine in there, because I did have the fox there when my father saw me there. He told me to take that stuff out of the box. So he took it out because it was hot enough. So I took it out. So what did she say? It was controlled by the home president. He had a lot of tendency, I wouldn't necessarily say to be profound, but you can speak to every witness or even people, in the park. Well, I'm speaking to you because you know him very well. No, I did not. No, I did not. I knew of him. I did not know him at all. He never shared with me personal information about his life up until he got incarcerated. After that, he started talking to me. He came out, much more like someone different. And sentenced to 18 months in prison. Toward the end of his sentence, Kojo's visa was revoked, and he was sent to a federal facility in Texas. Dr. Kenua, Alex's father, helped Kojo find legal representation. After his release, Kojo moved in with the Kenuas. Although Alex is stating that he doesn't know if Kojo is violent, that's not quite true. He referenced Kojo's case in the previous interview, and even went so far as to say that Kojo talked to the Kenuas about it. Do you know where Kojo is at? After he mentioned his case, because I remember several years ago, he had a charge. He mentioned something to my brother about the woman who got him in trouble, something like that. Alex seems to be downplaying Kojo's dark past, and it could be because he has an unsavory past of his own. So, you yourself were caught up in a situation not too long ago at college, where you were accused of an act of violence. Right. If I wasn't there, I don't know the circumstances behind it. Let me just break it down real quick. Sure, if you wanted to. Well, I could be the bodyguard right now. That's how I looked at it. I stayed with people who went to jeopardize our college experience, and also our education in the world. I just happened to be in the mix of it. I could have moved. I should have moved, actually. But because of that person and their behavior, which jeopardized my safety, bringing people I know to harm standing and pinpointing rumors on me, I'm not going to say rumors, clear threats. So, I had to defend my life. Did you stop the threat? I mean, definitely I don't. The only fact is that I went about it because I didn't go outside to look for him. He came to look for me. He came to our apartment. And he could have been off. And he is off sometimes. So your perception is you stopped the threat. He was a threat. And you had to stop that threat. I think that's a fair assessment. Thank you. Before Alex had returned home from college, right before Kojo's disappearance, he spent a few days behind bars. Police spoke with Alex's roommate, Devin Keys, about Alex's strange behavior leading up to the incident. Hello, this is Devin. Hey sir, it's Detective Lane. So like I was telling you before, I wanted to talk to you about Alex. And you're his roommate on a daily basis? Yes sir. Okay. How long have you guys been living together? We've been in the same dorm for 2 years, but that was my first year actually living in the same room with him. Now, were you a friend to Alex, or you guys just lived together? Yeah, I was a friend of his. Okay. In the last couple years, had his behavior changed at all? His behavior started changing in, I'll say, about December or January of this last year. Okay. What kind of things did you see that made you think his behavior was changing? Well, he just started acting different. Did you ever see him have like a skeleton hand? Not a real skeleton, but like a medical skeleton type of thing? Yeah, he had one of those. He had one of those? Now, when did he start carrying that around? I'll say around March, maybe. Did he ever do anything in his rooms that were strange or out of the ordinary? He used to. He had weird videos that he used to watch, and then he would have like chanting books or something like that. Chanting books. I call them chanting books because they're not like normal. Well, I don't want to say normal religious books, but something kind of like voodoo, I guess. Voodoo kind of thing? Yeah. The videos you're speaking of, what kind of videos would they be? War videos like torture, stuff along that end. Other people who knew Alex also noticed a change in his behavior. Alongside carrying a medical skeleton around, Alex started going by the nickname Mufasa. The latter fact became known when an RA had responded to a situation in which someone going by the name Mufasa had broken a window in an apartment building. But this wasn't the incident that resulted in Alex's time in jail. The young man he assaulted down there at your dorm room, did him and that young man have a problem? Like, was there kind of tension between the two of them, or did it surprise you that he did that? It surprised me because, just the other couple days before it happened, they were just talking about regular stuff, and then that happened. In an exclusive interview with EW, Joshua Caesar, the man that Alex attacked, talks about his close call with death. I knew Kenua as an acquaintance. We both went to the same school together, Morgan State University. Joshua said that he was meeting a friend after graduation and decided to wait for her at the apartment where Alex also happened to live. And when I walked through that door, as soon as I crossed the threshold, I heard what I know to be God at this point now. Put your arm up. I felt something waving over me. And so I put my arm up, and underneath my arm, I could see a man standing there with a black sheet over his head, and I was knocked unconscious. The man in the black sheet was none other than Alex Kenua. Alex had attacked Joshua with a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire and chains. I woke up in the back of the house. Fortunately, Joshua's friends, Mac and Meriwether, were nearby to intervene before things took an even deadlier turn. Mac opened the door. He says, "Stay in here. Don't go anywhere." I said, "What happened?" He says, "Stay here." Then he closed the door. About a few seconds later, I hear a bunch of rumbling and commotion. I didn't know what was going on out there still to that time. Mac came back inside, and he said, "Come out." When I came out, there was blood all over the place. And I didn't realize at that time it was mine. With no memory of the attack, Joshua had to ask his friends about what happened that day. He said, "Well, Mac said we were playing a game when we heard a scream, a shriek. We ignored it. So Meriwether said, no, that didn't sound right, and opened the door, and he saw Kenua was standing over top of me with a knife. There was a struggle and a fight over my body. That noise and commotion I said that I heard in the restroom I was waiting until Mac said come back out was them fighting off Kenua a second time from coming in to get back to me. Mac and Meriwether bravely fought off Alex until he fled to a nearby wooded area. He was found by campus police shortly after and charged with assault and reckless endangerment. After paying a bond of $220,000, Alex's family brought him home on May 23rd, 2 days before Kojo went missing. Joshua's injuries included a shoulder fracture and multiple skull fractures. He also lost sight in his left eye permanently. Joshua credits his survival to his friends that protected him from Alex and the campus police officers that kept him awake after losing so much blood. As horrific as the attack on Joshua was, it was far from the only incident involving Alex. Yeah, I beat up on your bed, and I jerked off. And I bust on it. You got something to say, man? You can look in on your bed. Hope you have a good night's sleep. BP on them freaks. Super freak, huh? You like them super freaks? Well, I got you on some over your bed. Playing games with me out here. Who's playing with you? Nobody's playing with you. Not that I don't have the respect to be calling you no more. So this whole thing happens to that bitch. You keep doing that shit again, that shit's gonna keep fucking happening. Listen, next time I see you with people like that, here's what's gonna happen. See your fucking clothes? Go look in your bed. Look, I left you a fucking surprise. That's just me. Devin also had some insight into this incident between Alex and a fellow Morgan State student. Are you familiar with something when Alex maybe went into somebody's bedroom, did something on their bed? Did you hear that story? Yes, I heard that story. Okay, who told you about that, Alex or somebody else? He told me. And what did he tell you? He said that somebody disrespected him, so he disrespected them in return. And did he tell you what he did? He went to the guy's bedroom and went on their bed. Did he tell you how they disrespected him in the first place? No, he wouldn't tell me that. Okay, do you think there really was an argument between him and that gentleman, or you think this is just something he was imagining? I would say it was something that he either imagined or he just took out of hand. It wasn't just Alex's friends who had to deal with his baseless accusations. And right now, I'm following somebody who I thought was watching over here, getting a phone call. Not even him. See right there? Oh well, that makes sense. Based on his self-recorded videos and the accounts from those who knew him, it seems like Alex's aggression was ramping up during March, April, and May of 2012 before finally culminating in the terrifying attack on Joshua Caesar. All of these incidents involve Alex taking extreme actions based on perceptions that have no basis in reality. Realizing that this could be a possible motivation for Alex to have killed Kojo, the detectives dive into trying to uncover the truth behind Kojo's disappearance. Nothing can prepare them for what Alex eventually reveals. The issue of Norman said, "That guy, you perceived him to be a threat." That's not true. You perceived him to be a threat. And then I asked you if Kojo was a threat. You initially no. I don't really even know. Well, if he was involved in terrorist activities, if he was involved with bad people or bad things that were going on, and he's living at your parents' home, under their roof, with your siblings and yourself, how would you not say that he's not a threat? Like Kojo's case, as far as for him staying with our family, he stayed with our family before. He has done what he has to do. And that's when after he got arrested and all that, his behavior shifted. But you were so vague about that. No, what I mean is that his behavior has shifted as far as for how he went about his business. People can tell you much more, whether he was much more involved with people or less, or introverted. When you start connecting the pieces here, to me it made more sense that, he's trying to get himself back up on his feet. However, at the same time, he may not necessarily be doing that, He may have some other ulterior motives. And especially speaking to my mother, who mentioned earlier that he was having trouble going to the basement to use the washer and a scooter. He asked her if Kojo put his hands on him. And that's when I knew that something was wrong. And then I just went ahead and just fixed it. I didn't know something, but something had happened. I don't think anything happened. How do you feel about that? I don't feel nothing. It doesn't make you angry? Anger is a good thing too. Anger is something. However, don't get mad, get wise. So, could it be getting wise, stopping the threat? Stopping the threat could be something. The pain is coming. The pain is going. They couldn't believe it, but now it's flowing. They saw it. They got their mouths zipped up. Because they know when they up. It's going to get zipped up and thrown across the cut. The cut is sorted. The cut is sorted. Out the body. It's moving down. The mouth is so distorted. Listen, you are responsible for what happened to Kojo, as far as his doctors. Yeah. Why you committed that act, that caused that, that's what I need to understand. I do know that he has been manipulative and taken advantage of my father's good heart and my family's kindness. You're not going to stand for that. Is that clear? Right. And on top of that, he also gives up signs, like I say, classifiers, which I was hearing. Well, I don't know. I know how he acts and everything, because I have, in my bookshelf, some of the type of books and materials that I read. But with him, he sat directly next to my library, where I have those type of books there. And every time I notice, he would go to them, and he would look at me he would give me a certain look. He would give me a look like, he doesn't want me to find something, he's hiding something. So every time I would come down to his, he would rush to hide something. What is he hiding? What is he doing? Whenever I went to my room, my things were moving around, so he was definitely following me. Morning, please. Tell me what it was that put you at the top when you said, "This is it." I asked him. I asked who he put his hands on. I thought about it. I dreamt about it. So, was this something that you planned, or was it just very early in the night when you came in front of him? I didn't come in front of him. I told him already that, I'm coming. What did you say? I spoke to him briefly, arranged my Saturday room, made him take all his to work on, put all my stuff there, fixed up everything, and I just asked him some brief questions because he started working on it, all that, trying to work with his muscles and all that. I said, look, I don't fight, especially people who come to my family. I do something else. Tell me how you started it, what you did. I made this confession. So then, how did you kill him? I was after him. Now tell me how to do that, though. So basically, I spoke to him. That was it. And then what did you do? After speaking to him, I chained him with a hatchet, chained him with a pipe. I don't know who it's a piece of. I don't know. I just don't know. But it could be anyone's family. My family. I could be where my family went. With this proclamation, Alex has fully admitted that he believes he killed Kojo in order to protect his family. I don't know the truth. So again, you are logical. You are a thought man, right? Who was there when you took his life? Just you and him? Because he can't talk. Just as the detectives start to make progress, things take a turn for the bizarre. I talk to dead people. Right now, I'm not interested in talking to anyone dead. I'm only interested in one person, and that's Alex. That's my only interest. Whether or not Alex genuinely believes that he can somehow communicate with the dead, the phrasing and tone of his retort, as well as the fact that he's bringing this up unprompted in a serious murder investigation, arguably betrays his intent to be defiant. He doesn't want to roll over just yet. Detectives have to, once again, do their best to get him on track. So clearly you perceive Kojo as a threat to your family. There was a point in time where a decision was made by you that this has got to stop. This is going to end right here. There's two things I don't know. Is it something that was a spontaneous because of something that you did, or is it something that you said, this is how I'm going to fix this problem, with a spontaneous? I look at it as this. Kojo, when he started doing the things that he did, started moving from house to house, and I knew that he was silent. And his personality, just based on his character analysis that I was conducting, I was like, something is about to go. And I knew that it was my family. And by then, I just played some music and went to work. I know what you mean by you went to work, but I need you to explain to me how you went to work. You've been able to see that tape recorder. After hours of grueling investigation and interrogations, Alex is finally willing to give up the details of this crime. However, no one was prepared for the depths of his depravity, nor the stomach-churning reality of what happened to Kojo Kotier. It seems the officers take Alex outside for a cigarette and continue recording the audio of his disturbing confession. Where did Kojo go? You're not going to find him. Can you tell me? I'll get that right to you. What? Okay, where is he? He's right under your nose. Not at the police station, I hope. No. Okay, where? Well, why is he in my stomach? He's in your what? In your stomach? As startling as this admission is, Alex isn't done with the horrifying reveals. When did that happen? Yesterday. Yesterday? Did. All their body parts, are they? Can you give me an idea where they are? I don't know. You might find them. Did you put some of the rest of the body? What? Is it the rest of the body itself, or did you just cut out some parts of it? Some of it's dissected. That's dissected? Yeah. What charges? What charges am I facing right now? I'm already facing 30 years. So, what charges would I be facing? What charges would you be facing? Well, you're telling me you took his life, yes. Okay, so, I'm asking, and it was rhetorical. I shouldn't have said that. Did you take his life? He's not in existence. Okay, I could have helped him fake his death. Well, obviously, that would be murder charges. You're a smart guy. You know what they're basically going to make. If you can tell me, are there pieces of Kojo within and around here, in or around your house? Excuse me, is that a yes? You're looking for his head? Yes. And his head is taken care of. Is it? Is he? How is it taken care of? Can you tell me any more about that? His head is. Do you have anybody at the house right now? Can you get him on the phone? Sure. Through the phone, Alex guides the officer to his gruesome leftovers. Okay, go to the dining room. Okay, there's a big cabinet, a white cabinet. It has like glass shelves on it. You see the white shelves? Now go to the bottom. Move the box of books over there. At the bottom of the cabinet, move the boxes and open them. Open one of the shelves. Do you see a bag of charcoal? Go ahead and open it. Do you see it? Yeah. What is this inside the bag? What is that? That's what we're looking for. That's the only part. After recovering Kojo's severed hands and head, the officers were set on retrieving the rest of his remains. Alex revealed that he disposed of it in the dumpster of a nearby church, and went so far as to brag that the chances of recovering it were slim to none. However, when officers investigated the dumpster for themselves, they discovered 2 duffel bags inside, infested with maggots. As they tried to remove one of the bags, it tore, and the officers were forced to watch in silent horror as Kojo's torso slid out and hit the pavement. I just wanted to, before we were at the top, Alex was telling me, I'm just gonna put the same report on the table, okay? I'll just shoot it. Alex, if you can, since Tom wasn't sitting here just a second ago, just run through that with what you're telling the other detectives. Alex begins eagerly recounting a story so disgusting and despicable it far outshines everything the detectives have learned thus far. Alex no longer has anything to hide, and as a consequence, he finally discusses in detail what happened the night he slaughtered Kojo. And it's more horrifying than anyone imagined. It's that night, after everything took place. We didn't argue anything, but I did tell him. I'm not going to speak about anything. A cannibalism, was more so about him being. I asked him if he knows about cannibals, and he said he's a real man. He'd find out. So I asked him, is he ready to die? And he was like, no, he's not ready to die. So I made the angel of death. And then what did you do, Alex? Well, that night, I know you was into gospel. I know you've been in trouble. Play some gospel music. And then you would smirk at me. Okay, man. I stood over him. Went to work with the arm. Took the axe. And just went to work on his head. Hit him well. Twice. And then after that, I let him bleed out. And then I took his heart out. After I took his heart out, I just cut him in half. Cut him off. How did you get the parts outside? Just walk. Did you bump into anything? She wrapped him up in a bag. And took him, where? To the church. Any particular reason to go to the church? Was there any particular reason that you did that? I had some bother. There was an issue with your brother. Find him. Some things tell me about that. He found what he found. He doesn't know himself, but he's smart enough. Like you are when you're smart. Not that smart, but he doesn't know the circumstances behind it, because sometimes his judgment calls him. He may not have seen because when I'm not around, he's the second, at least say the second in charge. And if he can't recognize it, that's on his own family. What is he going to do? What do you think should happen to you for this? Put me in a scene, it's not. Are you in a scene? No, I'm not. I want to look. The action, that didn't make me look insane. It's what society. But basically what I do is an ancient rite of getting rid of honor. Let's go. And that's the way you look at it. Good job. That's ancient justice. Though Alex may be basking in his crime, he seems lucid and afraid of punishment enough to minimize his own sentence by recommending he be remanded to a psychiatric facility. Even with everything he's revealed so far, Alex still had one last sickening detail to share. And again, I'm just trying to understand. This was totally symbolic on your part. You were cooking his head and hands. You removed his hands from his body so that they could not touch anyone anymore. I guess his head disgusted you, and you wanted to deform the head, cook away the hands, eat some of them, and you ate his heart. That's when he thought that he ate his head. I tasted some of it. It tastes a little bit like the principle of the U.S. West. Did you use a barbecue sauce? Yes. It's just like small bits of sea salt. How do you feel now? Justice is served. That's how it will be. As sickening as this reveal is, it also could potentially answer one of the remaining questions. The police brought cadaver dogs to the Kenua home, and they did not indicate that there were any human remains. And yet, Alex had butchered and eaten parts of Kojo in the home, and he had a blood-covered mattress in his room. The reason the dogs didn't pick up on the scent could be due to the dog's training and experience, as well as the training and expertise of the handler. If a dog is not well trained, or if the dog is being used in a situation for which it is not trained, such as live detection versus human remains detection, the dog is likely to fail. It's also important to note that by cooking and seasoning the body parts, much of the scent of the remains was destroyed. The dogs look for things like skin cells, and cooking would destroy them, potentially throwing off the dog's ability to detect the remains. However, alone, spices and cooking will not prevent a properly trained dog and handler team from finding human remains. After nearly 6 hours total of interrogation, detectives may just now be meeting the real Alex Kenua. It's a very beautiful day. No matter what the mission, it's always coming back. It's always the mission is first. No, the skulls are getting cracked. No, the skulls are getting extracted. Their brains are getting extracted. You know what happens when skulls get extracted? Their brains get sucked out of their noses. And I'm gone. Please believe. The whole record. Following his confession, Alexander Kenua was charged with first-degree murder and weapon carrying. Prior to a trial, he was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and in August of 2013, he pleaded guilty but not criminally responsible. He was then indefinitely remanded to a state psychiatric facility. Though he was deemed unfit to stand trial, it is possible that he could be deemed competent in the future. Alex also pleaded guilty, but not criminally responsible for the assault of Joshua Caesar. Case 3. Colorado in February of 2008. Investigators uncover a twisted tale of cults, devil worship, and cannibalism, hinting that their missing man may be a dangerous figure with a horrifying past. As the investigation unfolds, detectives uncover a shocking twist about the suspect and their dark plots, but nothing prepares them for the revelation of the suspect's true motive. On April 28, 2008, Detective Cox with the Montezuma County Sheriff's Office responds to a missing persons report from a man named Jim about his brother, 41-year-old Jack Barry, who had not been seen since late February. Jack's mother Sandra reveals that his son, Jeremiah, confided in her with horrifying information. Detectives bring Jeremiah to the station, determined to uncover the truth about what really happened to his father, Jack. Little do they know their investigation will plunge them into a labyrinth of horrors and expose a shocking history. Any and all claims made by individual witnesses, in this case, have not been verified and represent only the opinions of those providing their personal accounts. The following footage has never been seen before. Okay, he does this all the time. Okay, if you were to guess over the period of your life, how many times do you think this has happened? Where your dads just kind of disappear up and disappear? 9 times. He always creates some kind of incident and then a lie to go with it. Like last time he said that he got lost in a canyon and couldn't find his way out, and then he broke his leg. I don't think that okay. He'll just come up with things. Jeremiah's grandmother, Sandra, describes her son, Jack, as a paranoid schizophrenic who is severely delusional, adding that this is strictly her opinion and not an official diagnosis. If you have any knowledge about why your dad's missing or anything like that, you should tell me now. Do you have any knowledge of why your dad's missing? No. Okay. Do you know where he's at right now? Montana, I think. I don't know. So you believe him to be in Montana right now? Yeah. Okay. What makes you believe that? Because that's usually where he goes to kind of get away, and he has a cabin up in the woods up there. Okay. And he'll go and trap and stuff. So he has a cabin in Montana? Yeah. You ever been to his cabin in Montana? No. Or I don't know if he has. See, I don't know because I haven't been there, but he tells me he has a cabin. Okay. Do you believe him? Yeah. Because he likes outdoors and the hunting and trapping. He's taught me how to trap. So most likely, yeah. That. And he's also was talking about how he wanted to become a border control, not border control, a ranger or something up on the Canadian border. He talked about that for a while, but I don't know. He kind of just goes where he wants. Okay. So like we've kind of established, this probably isn't the first time anything like this has happened then, right? No. This is the first time anybody's called and said that he was missing. Okay. Why do you think somebody would call and say he's missing? I have no idea. The only person that would care would be my grandmother. When Jeremiah's grandmother, Sandra, was interviewed, she admitted that it wasn't uncommon for Jack to frequently leave quickly without explanation. However, Jeremiah told her a different story than the one he told detectives, claiming his father left for Utah with an unknown woman. Sandra began to believe he wasn't telling the whole truth, her suspicion growing when Jeremiah ominously said he needed to tell her something. But if he did, she would not want him to visit her in Arizona. Sandra's statements hinted that Jeremiah knows exactly what happened to Jack, leaving detectives with the challenging job of uncovering the whole truth. Did you know him to have any girlfriends, or is there anybody he would travel with that would come get him? Yeah, but I don't know her name. So that really doesn't help. Have you ever seen her? Yeah. What's she look like? She's from Utah. She's tall, skinny, about hair up to hair, black hair. And she has like a new Dodge Ram, and it's like a blue color. And I said, that's the only person that I've ever seen him drive off with or go with. But he came back. Where did you see that? That was when I was at the orchard. The orchard is the name given to a sprawling expanse of apple trees, just north of the Ute Mountain Reservation in Colorado, where Jack had been living in his trailer. They would later search his trailer for clues to his disappearance, unaware of the strange and bizarre discoveries that would await them inside. In the meantime, though Jeremiah doesn't know the name of the alleged girlfriend, his sister Rachel does. She identifies her as Joey and shocks investigators with the claim that Jack killed both Joey and her son Brandon. The startling allegation leaves investigators scrambling to locate Joey to confirm her safety. As Jeremiah continues, he suddenly turns the topic into a strange new direction. He was trying to work at the Excelsior plant. He was trying to work there for a while. But then he started thinking that people were going to throw him into the machines and chop him up. Why would he think that? Because he's crazy. When you say crazy, crazy, how do you mean? Like he hears voices. God talks to him. What does God say to him? Lots of things. God sometimes tells him to kill people. I don't think he's done it. I hope anyways. And that God says that the government's after him. And so there's wires everywhere. He thinks like everybody's wearing wire. While these behaviors are concerning, they do little to explain where Jack may have gone, forcing the detective to bring the conversation back to his last known whereabouts. You said earlier that you had last seen him in February. When was that in February again? I really don't know. Like when? Approximately. Like the 23rd. So around the 23rd was the last time you saw him. Yeah. And he was where at? At the orchard. And then he was going to go check on a job. And then he left, and then he came back. And then I was out with the sheep. And when I got back, he was gone. And I haven't seen him since. So just over the course of one day, you saw him that morning, and then he was gone by that night. And how did you know he was gone? I mean, the fact that he wasn't physically there, did he take things with him or what? No, but he had his, or he took his clothes and stuff. But the dog, he left his dog there. Would that be abnormal for him? Usually he comes back for his dogs. Because usually he has hound dogs, and he'll leave them for a while, and then he comes back. This time he just hasn't come back. But it hasn't been that long. Usually it can be gone 4 months before he'll come and get his dogs. Investigators would soon speak with 55-year-old Elizabeth, the owner of the orchard and a nearby business and residence referred to as the Dog Hotel. According to her statement, Jeremiah lived with her at the Dog Hotel, where they shared a room for approximately 6 months prior to Jack's disappearance. She described Jack as a terrible person and a freeloader. She claimed he butchered her livestock, once roasting them whole over an open fire. Elizabeth recalls one harrowing incident in late 2007 where Jack went off the deep end, threatening to kill his daughter, Rebecca, along with her husband and their children. Officers further note in the report that these violent threats led Elizabeth to consider shooting Jack. Whether she or someone else enacted this dark plan remains to be seen. For now, with Jack still missing, the priority remains locating him as quickly as possible. You know, we're trying to figure out where he's at and why nobody seems to have heard from him for months now. I don't know why he has a girlfriend. So no, I don't spend on that a little bit. I just know he has a girlfriend because that's always where he is making more kids. According to Jeremiah's mother, Rita, Jack has as many as 13 children with his 4 former wives and girlfriends. So the day that you went out to tend the sheep, around February 23rd or so, snowing then, snow on the ground, what? So how did he hoof it out? Did he hoof it out of there on foot or? No, somebody would have had to pick him up because there wasn't enough. Are you thinking that, lady? Did he say, hey, I'm probably be gone shortly, somebody's coming to pick me up? He doesn't say things like that. That's not his thing. He just up and leaves. Kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing? Yeah, and it's all of a sudden. God tells him he needs to go somewhere else to do God's work, and he's gone. As detectives begin probing for more information about Jeremiah's relationship with Jack, they'll soon uncover unsettling patterns of behavior that only begin to scratch the surface of a deeply disturbing past. How was your relationship with your dad? We get along. Did you guys argue much or? No, because before that, I didn't really talk to him. I didn't see him for maybe 5 years before that, because I lived with him in Colorado Springs, and then him and my stepmother got a divorce, and she left, and so then I came back with my mother. I wouldn't say we're friends, but we're not enemies, because he's really not a father, because he just kind of comes and goes. So it's kind of like an uncle. So you don't have that fatherly attachment to him? No, I don't think any of us do. Does it hurt your feelings that he's just up and disappeared? Does it make you wonder? No, because I'm used to him doing this. Honestly, this isn't shocking at all. It's like he's always leaving. So it doesn't make you feel bad? No. However, troubling statements from Jeremiah's mother Rita, along with unsettling remarks from Jack's children Rebecca and Josh, would soon point to a far more horrifying reason for their detachment. Had you and your dad ever been, or did you know of your dad getting in fights and arguments with your family here in town? Oh yes. Tell me a little bit about that. He got in a fight with my sister Rebecca because he told her that these Christian people paid her to wear a wire to record him, and then that same day he got in a fight with her, and then when he came back then he threatened to kill. He threatened to kill my mother, my brother Johnny, my sister Rachel, my nephews and my sister Rebecca, and leave me and my brother Josh alive. Did you think he was serious about that? Yes and no. It was more of a bluff. It was like he was just angry that, and because he's crazy, he just goes off and leaves, and that's really when that's when he decided. I think that's when he left. Whether or not he truly left remains to be seen. However, with the disturbing claims given to detectives by Jim and Sandra, the truth may turn out to be far more sinister. When your dad threatened to kill your brothers and sisters in the mountain, how'd that make you feel? Did it make you mad? Of course. I think it would make anybody mad, but it did make me mad, but I didn't think he was going to do it. Let me ask you this in your heart of hearts. Would you believe that your dad would have killed them, or could have killed them? No, I don't think he would have killed them. Maybe my mother, but not the kids. I don't think. Why do you say your mom? My dad hates my mother. My dad cannot stand my mother, but because he says that she's a whore and that none of us are really his kids, but he thinks that I'm his kid and my brother Josh. Jeremiah's mother, brother and sister would each share deeply disturbing allegations in their interviews with investigators. Jeremiah's mother Rita described a gut-wrenching history of violence at the hands of Jack, alleging that he would regularly beat and assault her even while she was pregnant. We've kind of got a picture of who your dad was. Okay, let me ask you this. Did your dad ever abuse you kids? Yeah. Like how? Physically, mentally. He abused almost all of us. Like he would make fun of you and make fun of all of us, and he'd beat the crap out of all of us. Or no, actually, that's not true. He would beat the other kids, but he would beat the crap out of me. You were some of them. Yeah, usually, but that was also because I was the oldest, and he was our only blocker then though, because when he left most of the kids were still a little young. Josh and Rachel would substantiate these claims, adding that Rachel and Jeremiah had each experienced further more appalling forms of violence from Jack. These terrifying allegations are only the beginning as deeper, more chilling secrets from Jack's past continue clawing to the surface. Still, Jack remains missing, and despite the harrowing revelations, none of it points to what may have happened to him. You described your dad several times as crazy as could be. A lot of times that stuff runs in the family. Believe me, I know. Did any of that get over into you? I mean, do you have problems with anything, hearing voices or anything? How about his parents, his mother, his father? Were you one of them? His father was crazy too. According to Sandra, Jack's father, Jack Keisling, also known as Reverend Whitehorse, had a bone-chilling history of violence. She claims he led a devil-worshipping cult in New Mexico near Silver City in 1986. Police did confirm there were unsubstantiated rumors of devil worship in the area in the 1980s, but no specific information regarding Keisling or Reverend Whitehorse was found. The harrowing discoveries made in Jack's trailer at the orchard revealed that perhaps he was equally fascinated with dark energies just like his father. Meanwhile, Jack's shocking history takes a dark and twisted turn as Jeremiah's sudden admission brings horrifying new implications for their missing subject. They thought he was a cannibal too. I'm sorry? They thought he was? No, he was. He was. How do you know this? Because he made me eat people. Who did he make you eat? Tech Mexicans that were illegal. And who killed them? He did. Where was this at? All over the place. Carver Springs, Arizona. At what age were you when that was going on? Before they put me in CPH, so like I can remember from like 6 and onwards. You actually saw him killing these people? Yes, because he thought I should help him. How many would you estimate there were? 13. 13, you're pretty definite about that. Yeah, because I can remember him. Josh, Jeremiah's younger brother, recalled seeing human arms and legs in the refrigerator as a child, elaborating on one horrifying incident in which he discovered a human hand with painted fingernails and a large diamond ring. What he says his dad did with the remains would be enough to ruin anyone's appetite. In Jack's trailer, demonic altars, rotting skulls, and scattered animal bones were discovered. Police would also search the dog hotel where Jeremiah resided. No clues pointed to what may have happened to Jack, but several deeply unsettling discoveries were made. In the bathroom, investigators found a glass jar with a pill bottle suspended in a strange liquid. Within the bottle was a dark substance which emitted an extremely foul odor when opened. The jar was seized by police, though the substance was never identified. Detectives also located several journals belonging to Jeremiah, its pages filled with unusual drawings, hinting that the familial fascination with the occult didn't end with Jack. Jeremiah's haunting desires and a grim sketch would later be found hidden among the pages, leaving investigators speechless. When you say he tried to make you help, how did he try to make you help? If I could cut him up because he was a meat cutter, and he was teaching me how to cut him up so that it would be the most tender, and he would force you to eat him as well. And were all these people Mexicans that were illegals, or was there other people involved too? Men, women, what? Men, women, children, just illegals. According to Rita, Jack would admit to having a vile appetite and would joke about his fascination with a peculiar type of meat. She also told investigators he became especially paranoid around Mexicans, despite Rita being of Mexican heritage herself. These people, what put y'all to a position to be able to have him be able to kill him and get away with it 13 times? He would be nice, he would always help homeless people. Because he was a meat cutter, he used to sell meat and give meat to different Mexican families. He would go down to Mexico a lot. It's not that hard. You can tell when somebody doesn't have a great heart. Or at least if they came from Mexico, he would take them. How many do you know of intolerance rates? 2. Mexican males involved. Amid the distressing allegations of murder and cannibalism, police desperately search for Joey, Jack's former girlfriend, whom Rita's children claim their father murdered. Fortunately, she's located alive and well in Penrose, Colorado. Joey shared her own bizarre stories about Jack, including his claims of working for the CIA and killing people in Bosnia. Joey even recalled Jack saying he murdered his daughter's boyfriend and disposed of the body. How long ago would that have been, those two guys? 97. Yeah, you would have been how old then? About 9, 10. And did you kill him in the house where you guys lived? Yes, the apartment. And how would he go about that? First, he didn't kill him in the house. Where would he kill him at? I had no idea where he would kill him because I didn't go with him, but he would kill him and he would have him in the back of his truck. And then he would take him inside the house, and that's where he would chop him up. In another chilling account, Joey described Jack bringing home meat wrapped in white butcher paper, which tasted very different and bad. Although Jack told her the meat was buffalo, Joey remained suspicious of its true nature. And that's why for like 6 years, I didn't eat meat at all, because I didn't even want to be around the sight of meat. So when you would bring them into the house, they were already deceased. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a lot of work too, I would think, to handle a body like that. Where would you store them? How would that work? Well, I would cut them. They would already be chopped up into sections. And then I'd have to go and help him carry it in. So you'd help him bring it into the house? Yeah. And then what would he do? Chop them up and put them in the freezer. And is that what you guys used to sustain yourselves off of? No, my mom wasn't around, yes. Despite the troubling testimonies of violence, murder, cult activity, and cannibalism, none of what they've heard so far explains or provides any clues why Jack suddenly vanished without a trace or where he may be. However, the detectives appear to have their own theory, but their subtle hints will not go unnoticed by Jeremiah. As you can see, I'm kind of old, but I've worked quite a few missing person cases. And most of them, the people turn up somewhere later on just fine. But a couple of occasions they weren't fine. Some bad things had happened to them. Okay, they were dead. And I have no knowledge that this is the case here, but I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation. If your dad's missing and somebody did kill him, what kind of punishment do you think that person should get? I don't know how to answer that question. What do you think would be fair punishment for someone that killed your dad? Might as well be what he did to them. So what would make it okay? It wouldn't make it okay, but do you think that if someone went out and intentionally killed him, they should deserve a second chance? No. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see anybody killing him with that. Okay, if somebody was to kill him, yeah, I think they deserve a second chance. Let me ask you this. From everything I've heard so far, your dad wasn't a big part of your life, kind of left your mom, all your brothers and sisters kind of on your own, trying to fend for yourselves. Be honest with me. Did you ever think deep down somewhere, you know what, I'd just like to give him what he deserves? I think everybody thinks that at one time or another. About your father or about their own fathers. About people in general. About my father? Yeah, about that. But would I act upon it? No. As detectives circle back to an earlier admission by Jeremiah, he begins to suspect that there may be a reason for their targeted questions. Like Detective Ellis here, I've done this for a long time. Here's been my experience. If you got a guy kind of like your dad, in and out, here and there, kind of sporadic through your life, and he's abusing his kids physically and mentally, probably abusing them in other ways too. Did that go on in your household? You guys think I did? Well, he has this twitching thing to the eye. I have a twitching thing all over my face. That was not just that. And then you said my grandmother. Yes. What makes you think that that would make us think that you were doing it though? Just those few things. No, just because the questions that you've been asking are interesting questions. Well, that's because they send us to school to teach. Teach us how to ask these interesting questions. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're thinking one way or the other just at this point. If there's something that you need to tell us, or you want to tell us like that, we'd sure be glad to hear it. But there's nothing I would like to tell you. What Jeremiah has yet to realize is the detectives are aware of much more than they're letting on. When Jim first contacted detectives about his missing brother, his suspicion that Jeremiah was involved in Jack's disappearance was not simply based on a hunch, but on a horrifying confession by Jeremiah that would soon transform this missing persons case into a full-blown nightmare. If there's something you know about this, now's the time to tell us because, if there's something that's happened, we can work through that. So that's why he's asking you right up front, because you're not dumb. You can see. Yeah, I wouldn't be suspect. I'm one of the last people to see it. So it's just the energy you're putting off is making me feel like at first it didn't. Actually, at first it kind of did, but towards the end, or here's what I'm trying to figure out is what happened to that. If it ends up him just wandering off somewhere with somebody, so be it. Most likely, if it's more than that, I'm gonna find that out too, because here's the deal with things like this, whether it was just him wandering off or whether it was something else. We'll find out. Our investigation will not end until we know the answer about where he's at. The detectives leave the room to discuss everything Jeremiah has told them so far. When they return, their attitude toward Jeremiah takes a noticeable turn. Okay, at this point, I believe that, more about what happened to your dad than what you're telling me right now. Okay, and what you've told us up to this point. A couple of the things I want to clarify with you is this. When we were at your house, I asked you when was the last time you saw your dad. Okay, and you told me on February 19th. Now it's the 23rd. Okay, when was the last time, Jeremiah, that you saw your dad? You're asking somebody who doesn't keep track of dates and time. Let's go with the 20th. Okay, Jeremiah, do you have any knowledge about what happened to your dad? No, I don't. Okay, why would somebody say that you did? Who said this? According to reports, his grandmother, Sandra, was reluctant to believe Jeremiah's admission, as he had a history of being dishonest. But when he asked her if she wanted Jack's wallet, later discovered in Jeremiah's backpack, the possibility he was telling the truth became frighteningly real. With pressure mounting on Jeremiah, the detective finally forces him to confront what really happened to his father. Here's what I think. I think that your dad abused you and your siblings for a long, long time. Okay, I think that you were mad, and I think you were angry. And I think that he put you in a situation where you had to make a life and death decision. Is that what did my grandmother say? Why would your grandma say anything? Because what did you tell your grandma? Yes, he did. Okay, here's where we're at. Did he put you in a situation like that where you had to make a decision? Yes. And what was the ultimate result of that? What do you guys think? What do we think, Jeremiah? Death. Are you saying you killed your dad? Yes. How did you kill your dad, Jeremiah? I shot him. Where'd you shoot him at? In the head. Where at? At what location? Out in the woods. Jeremiah's startling confession is only the beginning of the nightmare, as his jaw-dropping motivations for pulling the trigger, as well as what he did with his father's body, have yet to be revealed. Where was the gun, or how did that come into play? He had the gun. Okay, how'd you get that from him? He went down and he put his stuff down. He went to go to the bathroom, and I went and I grabbed it from his jacket pocket. So it was a pistol? Okay, did you shoot him in the back of the head? Yeah. And then what happened? He gets in the forehead earlier. Was it the back of the head? No, it was the back of the head. The back of the head. Yeah. While it's possible that Jeremiah simply misspoke, this isn't the only odd thing about his confession. According to his grandmother Sandra, Jeremiah confessed to shooting his father with a rifle, not a pistol, and that the shot was aimed at his father's forehead, not in the back. Can you describe what happened after that? I know it was kind of tough, but we kind of need these details as well. Like what? Where did you put the gun? Where's the gun at now? Where is he at? Things like that. The gun I threw to that river. To which river? The river in Duluth. Durango? Where were you at when you threw the gun in the river? I don't know. It's a park. Jeremiah's journals recovered from the Dog Hotel contained a detailed sketch that appeared to be a dismembered body. Several pages also reveal sketches of satanic drawings. One page eerily contains the words "kill him," and I will do what is necessary for my survival. And then I got rid of the body. How did you get rid of the body? Listen to me, Jeremiah. This is the more honest you are right now, and give us the details. Okay, the better it's going to be for you. I promise you that. Here's what we do know, Jeremiah. Your dad was a rotten dad. Okay. And he didn't do right by you and your siblings. Okay. But that we know that the hell that he put you kids through. Okay. That's what we figured out. We need to get this ironed out. I promise you it'll be better for you in the long run. Right. Okay. So you shot your dad, and then what happened? Nothing could prepare detectives for Jeremiah's horrifying answer. And then I chopped him up. With what? With knives and hatchet. Okay. And then I disposed of part of his body, and then I disposed of another part. Disposed of what? The torso. Where at? On the reservation. Jeremiah next describes the gruesome process with which he dismembered his own father. He brutally stabbed the severed hands over 190 times before placing the remains in separate buckets filled with cement. He admits to burning the bones, leaving what little remained of Jack to the wild coyotes on the Ute reservation. These beg the question, did Jeremiah plan his father's murder? Or did Jack do something to Jeremiah that finally made him snap? For now, investigators focus on recovering Jack's body, or what's left of it. So that bucket, where is it at the dog hotel? In the cellar room. In the cellar room? Yes, but nobody does it there. 2 large plastic buckets would later be located in the storage room of the dog hotel. An X-ray would reveal the bones of hands and feet encased in concrete, as well as a skull with a bullet still lodged inside the front of the forehead. Despite Jeremiah's earlier insistence that the shot was taken from behind, this leaves investigators to wonder if Jeremiah is simply forgetting the details of a traumatizing murder, or is there something else he's hiding? Does anybody else know about what happened that night? I just told my mom and my grandmother. Did they believe you right off the bat or no? Yeah, they did. Yeah, because I don't know why. Why would I? I don't, especially to my brother and my grandmother. I don't see how this is helping me though. The axe and the knife that you used to chop him up, where are those items at? They're in the river too. In the river too. How did you transport his torso out there to where you described out near the reservation, or is it really there? Yeah, it's really there with his truck. And his truck is out there also? No. Oh, you transported it with his truck? Yeah. Is that the truck that was out here at the house? Yeah. One in the barn? Yeah. An aerial search of the canyon, where Jeremiah claimed to have committed the horrific act, was unable to locate any evidence. Jeremiah later led detectives to a location where he said he'd left some of his father's remains, but all that was found was an empty trash bag. According to the police report, investigators felt Jeremiah was intentionally misleading them, as he didn't want his father's remains brought back together. They noted he demonstrated an obvious fear of his father coming back to life through the use of black magic. Jeremiah's shocking treatment of Jack's remains leaves investigators grappling to understand his motive, though nothing could have prepared them for what they would soon learn. As for the orchard owner, Elizabeth, though she admitted to considering shooting Jack in the past, she was out of town in Boulder, Colorado around the time of Jack's murder, clearing her as a suspect in his homicide. With no proof to support a theory that someone may have helped Jeremiah, and with potential other suspects cleared of any involvement, the detectives worked to identify what could have possibly pushed Jeremiah over the edge. What happened that got you to the point that you felt that that's what you had to do? You know what, Jeremiah, it's emotional, man. It's okay. If you need to cry, we cry too, buddy. If you need to, you take care of it. Yeah, he told me that. God told him. It's okay. God told him. God told him that I was supposed to have a sex change, so that way I could be his wife, because he wasn't supposed to sleep with women, because he wasn't supposed to have any more children, because he thought that people were going to take his kid and turn it into the Antichrist. The night that this occurred, it was a date night, right? And did he actually rape you that night as well? Yes. Okay, so after he's finished, he puts his stuff down, you get the pistol, and you shot him. Though investigators visited the river where Jeremiah claimed to have thrown the knives, hatchet, and firearm, their efforts to locate the evidence were thwarted by the river's intense current. Despite inconsistencies throughout Jeremiah's story, such as the location of the bullet wound and the type of firearm he used to commit the act, the reasons for such strange inaccuracies would never come to light. However, one final entry from Jeremiah's journal would expose a disturbing admission about his twisted relationship with his father. In it, he acknowledges the horrors of what happened, writing, "I have to live with the consequences." As the interrogation ends, Jeremiah wants to make one last thing crystal clear. "I just want to tell you, nobody else knew about it at all. Just your grandma and mom. Yeah, but and nobody helped me do any of it. It was just me." Police reports confirm that only the hands, feet, and head of Jack Barry have ever been recovered from his dismembered body. On March 29, 2008, 20-year-old Jeremiah Raymond Barry was arrested and taken to the Montezuma County Jail, facing a charge of second-degree murder. His bond was set at $500,000. On August 6, 2009, he initially entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, but was later found competent to stand trial. He ultimately pleaded guilty to 1 count of manslaughter and 1 count of felony menacing, and was subsequently sentenced to 3 years in jail, with 443 days, time served, and an intensive probation lasting 141 months. On March 2, 2012, after his release, Jeremiah died of an unconfirmed cause at the age of 24. No one besides Jeremiah was ever implicated in the murder and dismemberment of Jack Barry. Case 4. On Thursday, April 6, 2017, Shane Nicholas races toward home after getting word from a family member that there was a growing police presence at his house. He knows very little about the situation as he answers the distressing phone call that will change his life forever. The following report is based on police records, and most of the audio has never been heard before until now. Hello? Yes. Come on, man. Everything's cool, right? Everything's okay. Please tell me. Everything's okay. Where are we at, man? Do you know? Malibu, Indiana. No, I'm not. Who's driving? Adam. Will you assure me that Adam will remain the driver? All right, I'm going to tell you. Okay, sir. About 6 p.m. or so, maybe a little earlier, we responded to your house after receiving a call from a family member. There was some type of disturbance, and your wife has fallen victim as a result of that incident, and she's deceased. I understand. Take your time. No. That's not what happened. It can't happen that way. It can't happen that way. Hours ago at approximately 6 p.m., Champaign County dispatchers received a 911 call from Shane's 14-year-old son, though his haunting confession was the last thing anyone expected. 911, where's your emergency? I just killed my mother. What happened, sir? I just killed my mother, and I need to go to the hospital. Captain Loney assures Shane that his son is safe and in police custody, withholding the chilling reality of the situation. As Shane's panic rises, Loney begins to probe him for answers in an effort to shed light on the unfolding nightmare. Give me a little history on your son. And is his name, am I correct, is his name Donovan? Oh God, yes. Yes, Donovan Asher Nicholas. What's his date of birth? Oh God, I can't. I think he's 14 years old. Okay. What is it? I don't know. Okay. Has he been any behavior problem or anything to you? Never. The boy is soft-spoken. He's a genius. He's very, very smart. He's non-computational. Okay. He's never done anything. I didn't want to kill her. Has he ever inflicted harm to any family member or anything like that? Never. No harm to anyone. Never. None. Does he have friends and things of that nature? No. No, he does not. Okay. Let me ask you something. Have you ever heard of someone by the name of Jeff? Jeff? Yeah. No. Okay. No Jeff. Anybody like Jeff? Anybody that sounds like Jeff? Somebody that he talks about, maybe idolizes, whatever. Who knows, you know? No. Okay. Not at all. Why? The confusing question stems from Donovan's earlier admission to the 911 dispatcher, as his confession takes a dark and twisted turn. It wasn't me who killed her. It was Jeff. What happened? Who did it? Jeff, I'm sorry. This is going to be really hard to explain, but I kind of have another person inside me. What happened to your mom? She killed her. She snapped. All right. Are you able to say who's with you? I am by myself. Me and Jeff. But I swear it wasn't me. It was Jeff. Jeff is inside me. Jeff is inside you? Yes. Okay. He sometimes takes control, and I have no control over him. I hate Jeff so much. He's going to make me die in prison. Investigators face the baffling mystery of why a child, whose father describes him as soft-spoken and harmless, would suddenly turn on his own mother. Could Jeff be real, or is he simply a carefully crafted excuse? With many questions lingering, officers arrive at a scene straight from a nightmare. Donovan sits leaning against a wall in the kitchen, his white shirt drenched in blood. There are clear signs of a struggle, with large amounts of blood spattered across the walls, floors, and appliances. When asked if anyone else is inside the home, Donovan chillingly replies, "Nobody that's alive." While some officers speak with Donovan, others begin their search for the victim, unaware of the horror that awaits them upstairs. Why did Jeff want to kill your mom? It's just the way he is. Has Jeff ever hurt anybody before? No, this is the first time. According to our analysis team at EWU, while investigators don't need parental consent to question a minor in Ohio, a Miranda waiver must be obtained if a minor is a suspect in a crime. If the Miranda waiver is not voluntary in any given case, anything learned in the interrogation cannot be used in criminal prosecution. How long has Jeff been in your head? About 3 months. Upstairs, officers confront a horrifying scene. 40-year-old Heidi Faye Taylor is found lying in her bed, deceased. The brutal nature of her wounds points to a vicious attack, raising daunting questions about exactly what transpired between Heidi and Donovan. Back in the kitchen, officers notice an unsettling injury to Donovan's face. Though they ask him about it, he gives no clear explanation for how it happened. They let it go for now, but the strangely haunting wound on his face and its grim origin will soon demand answers. Is that the only injury you got is on your leg, though, and you didn't scratch right there, right? There's something on your stomach okay? No, what? I can't talk right now. Okay. There's something on your lip. Yeah, so. Okay. Is it? Other than that, that's it. Other than that, that's the only injury. Okay. We're gonna lift you up and take you out to the squad, okay? Okay. Can you walk? No. Okay, take a look. You want to lift him up, or you want to throw him on this chair and pull him out? It don't matter to me. Donovan is carried outside in handcuffs to the waiting paramedics, who strap him to a gurney and provide first aid to his injured leg. The medical team noted that Donovan continued to blame the attack on his alternate personality, Jeff, adding that he doesn't know why Jeff did this, and more chillingly, he doesn't know why Heidi didn't stay down. Investigators will soon interrogate Donovan at the hospital, but first, a nurse has questions of her own. Am I going to be safe in here in the room with you? Are you going to hurt yourself? Are you going to hurt yourself? Can you tell me what's happening? Do you want to write somewhere on it? I have never been died. I've never been died. I've never been died. Basically, the easiest way I can say it is multiple personality, but I really can't explain it, because multiple personality, I'm usually not aware. They can just talk to you, but I don't know what's called when they take control of you. I have always believed there's a good side in a person and a bad side in a person. What did your bad side tell you today? That he was going to kill her. Her next question is followed by a startling revelation from Donovan, who clarifies that the victim is his stepmother. The other person that you hurt, was it a family member, or who was it? It was my mother. Your mother, okay. Well, my stepmother. Stepmother, okay. I don't know where my stepmother is. Did she go to a different hospital? No, she's gone. Officers photograph Donovan's wounds and blood-stained clothing before reading his Miranda rights. Afterward, they begin diving into the harrowing mystery of the day's events and what may have triggered his sudden, violent outburst. Anything happened today at school? No. Did you have a bad day today or anything, or how was school? Investigators would later ask a similar question to his classmate and best friend Tatum, seemingly in an attempt to uncover any clues or warning signs that may have hinted at what was to come. Have you noticed any changes in Donovan's behavior recently? No, actually. If anything, he seemed a little bit happier, like at school. However, while Donovan was in the library the morning of the killing, another student named Jake approached his table after being aggravated by a fellow classmate. In his anger, he asked Donovan if he'd ever been so mad at someone he wanted to beat them up. Donovan eerily replied, "No, but I would stab someone." The student shrugged it off as a joke, unaware of the brutal acts that would take place later that evening. So, other than what you told me about him so far, were there any other emotional problems that you saw or anything else going on that we need to know about? Nothing at all. Okay. However, a chilling journal entry begins to hint at a darkness growing within Donovan. In it, he describes his dream utopia in which all emotions are eradicated. He makes an exception for love, cryptically stating, "Some people kill for love." But what did Donovan kill for? Shockingly, the journal isn't the only clue that something sinister was brewing. His English teacher would later discover a letter he wrote to him just before leaving school the day of Heidi's killing. However, its discovery would come far too late. For now, investigators focus on what happened when Donovan returned home. All right, so tell me about coming home from school. What did you do after you came home from school? I took a nap. I took a nap. You took a nap. So, you got home at 3, you took a nap. How long did you sleep? I'm going to say about a half an hour. It was supposed to be for a half hour. So you took a nap. What did you say it was supposed to be for a half hour? Who told you it was supposed to be a half hour? My stepmom. Okay. First, I asked if it could be a half hour. She said, yeah, but I kind of overstepped it. Then what happened? I woke up. I started cleaning my room. Then I kind of think Jeff wanted to come home. And then who? Jeff wanted to come home. Did you ever tell Dad or stepmom about Jeff? No. Why not? Because I was afraid that he wouldn't leave me. Okay. I didn't think I was doing it for attention. Did you tell anybody else about Jeff? I told the press. I told two. Who's the two people? After reassurance from the officer that he just wants to ask them questions, he reluctantly gives him two names. Her name's Tatum, and my close person friend of mine is my girlfriend. Who's that? Madison. Madison? Yes. The thing is, she's an immigrant. She's what? She's an immigrant, too. She didn't go to school out there? Where does she live? West Coast. So how did you tell her? On my phone. Yeah. I have no idea. How do you know her? Well, kind of embarrassing. But like, you mean via Facebook? Or on my... Oh, okay. Tatum would later share with officers her personal thoughts about the mysterious Jeff. When she's asked what Donovan's behavior is like when the alternate personality takes over, her reply raises more questions than answers. I don't know what he does when it happens. I've never been there when it has. I've only known him as Donovan. Do you believe he had a split personality? Or do you think this was just a fantasy thing for him? To get attention? Something like that. I don't think it was for attention. Like, I believe that it probably could have happened. Though she claims to have never witnessed this alternate persona for herself, bone-chilling evidence would contradict these claims. In a text exchange later uncovered between Tatum and Donovan, he acts as Jeff, calling himself the devil's child and anything but holy. He also makes disturbing requests for the courage to stab someone 67 times, and tells Tatum he's a lot different than Donovan, who would never kill anyone. For now, Jeff remains an enigma, with investigators unaware of how deeply disturbing the truth of his identity will reveal itself to be. Meanwhile, Donovan continues to elaborate on what happened next. So, you clean your room, and you say Jeff wants to come out. Can you describe Jeff to me? And how does Jeff act? He's homicidal. Well, yeah, obviously. But like, he laughs about things that he did today. And he's super fidgety. He always puts pens or twirls them through or something. So, can you tell me about what happened at home after you cleaned your room? What did you do then? He came out. He was tired of being in me. And he said, I'm going to come out. And usually I don't let him. And I try to not. And I try to stop him. But I was like, no harm's going to get me. And I was fine. Donovan then explains that once Jeff emerged, he changed clothes, dressed in a plain white t-shirt and black jeans. Why those clothes? Because it's his favorite outfit. It's a what? Because it's his favorite outfit. You talking about your favorite outfit? His. You mean Jeff? Mine I decorated white. White exterior. So changed clothes. And then what happened? He kind of left. And he curled his stupid smile on his face. Just a little bit. Boy, I thought he was going to kill me. Donovan indicates that he intentionally grabbed a knife and then grabbed the lancet to complete the cuts on his mouth. Both acts demonstrate a level of preparation and forethought. Donovan's cuts, extending from each side of his mouth toward his ears, created what officers grimly described as an exaggerated smile. This chilling explanation for doing this to himself would later leave investigators stunned. Disturbingly, Tatum suggests that Donovan may have been sharing these frightening ideas with someone else. I really don't know of any problems, like, for him at home, but he didn't have anyone else, really to talk to. There was this girl. All I know is that her first name was Madison, and that they used to talk, and they met over, the internet, an app. They had never met each other in person. And he used to talk to her. I feel like they maybe just, fed off each other. Investigators begin attempting to search for Madison, and quickly locate her Facebook account online. Though her profile is private, they're able to view photographs attached to the account. What they see as they navigate her gallery is nothing short of a nightmare. The disturbing images leaving them questioning the true horrific nature of Jeff. So, you have the injury to your face that you used the knife and the lancet for. Then what did you do? I was waiting for my mom to come downstairs. When we're talking about mom, you keep referring to mom. We're talking about Haley. Okay. She. Okay. So it's very confusing. Because when I say me, I could even mean me or Jeff, but okay. At this time period, I mean Jeff, but I say me because it's my physical being. Okay, but it was he who acted as super control. With that settled, Donovan continues to detail the harrowing account and the shocking moments that led to the brutal attack. You're downstairs. Yeah. You waited for her to come downstairs, so she's upstairs? She was upstairs, but she was taking too long, so I called her downstairs. What did you say to call her down? I said, Mom, can you come down here for a second? God, I'm nervous about this. So she came downstairs? What happened then? Well, it would be helpful. That way, we know what happened to her. I think you kind of owe your stepmom, a little bit of telling her what happened. Otherwise, nobody's going to know what happened to her. You know what I mean? I think you personally care about your stepmom. Maybe Jeff doesn't care about your stepmom, but I think you do. What happened when she came downstairs? Where was the door? The door was in the living room. It's the right side door that has the glass. Anyways, when she came by, I kind of had like a panic attack because Jeff was making me do it. So what happened after that? You said she came by. What happened after she came by? And I'm glad that he did this, but he hugged her. He did. And then after he hugged her, Mom was like, why did you put your face? So what happened then? He begins. Stop. In later interviews, Heidi's closest friend Angie and her daughter Ashley open up about Donovan, who they've known since he was just 2 years old. He's always been different, never really, like I wouldn't categorize him as shy, but he didn't like people with very few friends. Like he had friends. It's not that he didn't socialize. He was an introvert. He's very quiet. Yeah, he's very introverted. Very tense. Very tense. Why do you say very tense? Donovan has always been an issue for Shane and Heidi. And when I mean issue, that's what they argue about. They always argue about Donovan. Donovan is their main reason why they fight. Yeah, they'll soon share more eye-opening details, explaining what they believe to be the source of the ongoing tension between Donovan and Heidi. Meanwhile, Donovan continues to share the horrific details of what happened next as he began the savage assault. She said, no, stop. I was like, no. How many times was she stabbed? So she ran. Where was she stabbed? In the front of her, the back of her, or something else. So she went upstairs? You followed her? According to Donovan, when Heidi finally made it upstairs to the master bedroom, she laid down on her bed. What he did next would add a chilling new layer of brutality to the violent altercation. She was lying, if she was lying on the bed, I couldn't see her suffering. What did you do then? Me and Jeff couldn't see her suffering. I thought I was done upstairs. I was like, this is the quickest way she will. So she laid on the bed. Did she say anything else to you? Just call 911. And then after, I said no again. I shot her. It had to be an accident. You would not. I know they argued a lot. She was very frustrated. And you said it had to be an accident? That's what I believe, yes. I don't think that either one of them know they get mad at each other. I don't think that they would ever hurt each other. Not intentionally. Kids and parents, they argue. They fight. Did the bullet strike her? How far away from her head were you? But we both wanted her to stop suffering. He likes to do this, but he doesn't like it. But he doesn't like to imitate the suffering. And which hand did you hold the gun in? Well, both. I used the right to pull the trigger. You don't need to pull the trigger. If you're aiming at us, then you don't have to shoot at us. A coroner's report would confirm the cause of death as a gunshot wound to the head, with more than 60 multiple sharp force injuries to her body. A tip of the knife blade was also extracted from her skull, while the firearm was located on the bed lying next to her body. Did you know any history of any anger issues, any mental illness, any, depression, anxiety? She wanted to take him to a doctor. Heidi wanted to take him to a doctor, and her and Shane had talked about it. Why did she say that she wanted to? Was she saying things? Because maybe he was going through a depression. The fact that he was withdrawing, it was like 3.5 years ago. He started to withdraw from them. Back at the hospital, the investigator urges Donovan to continue, and he soon explains the horrifying cause of the self-inflicted wound to his leg. So he threw the gun down on the bed beside her, and then you went back downstairs? Yes, I did. What did you do downstairs? I was going to leave. Jeff was still taking control. I noticed my legs are hurting real bad. It was all wet and slimy. I pulled up, and there was a deep gash in my leg. I freaked out. How did you get the gash in your leg? Well, I was trying to hurt her. She fought back, and like her legs were tangled and... Her what? Her legs? Yeah. So you were wrestling with her? Yeah. Did you end up on the ground? Yeah, we both did. We wrestled a lot. And then I saw her body. I didn't care where my legs were. I don't know what to say. Take a breath. It's okay. Take a deep breath. When I started to hurt her, I hit my leg, but I didn't really feel anything because she wasn't in my life. So you stabbed yourself in the leg accidentally? Yes. As Angie and Ashley continued to elaborate on Heidi and Donovan's tense relationship, they delved deeper into what they believe may have been the root cause of their conflict. Everybody knows that there has been tension between them. And just 10. By tension, like you said earlier, you just mean them not necessarily getting along. Yeah, because she wanted to discipline. Yes. And, yes, like any 14-year-old. Right. You don't want to be disciplined. No. She would take the phone, his dad would give it back to him. She would take the game system. 2 days later, his dad would give it back to him. Yeah. Or, he would be grounded, but his dad would go take him shopping and spend like $400 on him. It was an issue. He can be very manipulative. He tries to get his way by getting up underneath your skin. Okay. And kind of forcing you to do what he wants. And a lot of times, he would try to do that by using his dad. He would never get punished for anything. So she was more. He never knew a consequence. She was more the punishing rat. Yes. Now, when you say punish, what type of punishment do you? Like taking the game system away, or taking his phone away, or making him do a chore. She never touched him or physically. She wouldn't even spank her children if that's what you mean. In an earlier conversation with a hospital nurse, Donovan explained what led to his next decision to contact the police and confess to the harrowing crime. Yeah, that's fair. While investigators have now learned the devastating details of what happened to Heidi, they still have little to go on when it comes to establishing a motive. Angie and Ashley's accounts of their strained relationship don't explain what could have caused Donovan to violently snap. According to our analysis team member at EWU, while a host personality can be aware of alternate personalities, it's very unlikely for the host personality to be aware of specific details that occur when an alternate is taking the lead. If truly an alternate personality existed, Donovan would not know the details and thought process of each step of the crime. What's that story? I'm not familiar with it. What's it about? It's pure white. Creepypasta is both a website and a term for horror-related stories and images that are shared online. Donovan earlier explained his fascination with the website to the nurse, mentioning names that may be hauntingly familiar. Yeah, what kind of? Besides this jacket on there. What else is on there? Slender Man? 30? 30 o'clock. It's really mid. It's really cool. Jeff the Killer, one infamous character, first began circulating as an image in 2008. Its disturbing origins widely disputed in online forums. The image has inspired many artists and even fan films. Another friend of Donovan's named Skylar sheds more light on Donovan's chilling fascination. He was kind of one of those people who, obsessed with scary stories. At least, that's how I saw it. He had a picture on his phone that was Jeff the Killer, which is what he mentioned. So that kind of, I never heard about it until I met him. And I was like, that's a pretty weird story. Though depictions of Jeff the Killer vary, several haunting details remain eerily consistent. He's always seen depicted with a wide, sinister grin, wearing a white t-shirt or hoodie and black jeans, the same clothing Donovan put on as he claims Jeff took over. When's the first time he ever brought up this Jeff the Killer? He actually never brought it up to me. I saw it on his phone. Oh, you saw it on his phone. Did you ask him, hey man, what is that? Yeah, and then he told me that it was a creepypasta story called Jeff the Killer. So I looked it up, and I thought it was one of the creepiest stories ever. However, it was Madison's Facebook page that truly left investigators stunned as multiple drawings of Jeff the Killer filled the photo gallery. Determined to uncover the truth, investigators continue speaking with Angie, who claims she left the house just before the brutal attack. He was taking laundry down, and then he was standing in his room, and she's telling me how she caught him. Because when I came upstairs, she said, "Don't even ask me for your damn phone because you're not getting it." So he was standing in the room, and she said, "Don't even ask me for your damn phone because you're not getting it." Yeah, something like that. And then she turns to me, and she says, "I caught him sexting today." And I said, "What?" I said, "Donovan." And she said, "I'm tired of this." Heidi confiscating his phone, preventing him from contacting his girlfriend Madison, may have been the final act that pushed Donovan over the edge. However, his earlier confession to the hospital nurse suggests it wasn't one specific action that set him off, but a combination of factors. Was there something that set Jeff off today? No, it wasn't me today. I mean, what seemed to bring on the attack? She always told me stupid stuff. Like, I don't know, like not doing dishes wrong or not sweeping the right spot. Like normal parents, you know? But no, I could absolutely talk her lungs for not doing dishes right. And once I sat down with my niece, if she was crying, and when I sat her down, I would not hit me. Sometimes she would be mean with the things that she said. And as a mother, I've done the same thing. I'm not perfect, but I know, she would say, and that's the only thing that I can think of, that as a kid, you don't want to hear your parents say crap things. But all she would say was like, I can't wait until he's 18. But I mean, she'd never, would she, look at him and, dumbass or stupid or, nothing like that? No, she would say pain in my ass. Yeah, well, I can't tell you how many times I've been. You're a pain in my ass. I can't tell you how many times I've been called that. And he would just sit there, if other people were around. However, as Angie left the home, Heidi and Donovan were alone when Donovan viciously ended her life. Later, Donovan's teacher contacted detectives about a letter Donovan left for him before leaving school the day of the killing. In the letter, he describes reading a book about a serial killer, his haunting words leaving sinister clues about his intentions. He claims killings are a part of human nature and can't be stopped. The letter and the glaring warning signs would be discovered far too late. Following his treatment at the hospital, 14-year-old Donovan Asher Nicholas was arrested and charged with both murder and aggravated murder, with mandatory prison time for a year each for having a firearm under his control while committing the crime and for using the firearm during the crime. He was transported to the Central Ohio Youth Center. On July 2018, Donovan was found guilty of all charges and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. However, 5 years later on June 15, 2023, the Ohio Supreme Court overturned the sentencing, stating that Donovan, a juvenile at the time of the crime, had his due process rights violated when the court used its discretion to certify him as an adult. These records are confidential. While we haven't been able to verify these details, according to news reports, Donovan has been released from jail. Case 5. In 2018, two women meet for drinks at a bar in Fort Myers, Florida. One invites the other to her hotel room completely unaware that she's in the presence of a killer. This encounter sets off a chilling chain of events, linking their meeting to a gruesome crime 1,000 miles away. Now investigators across state lines must work together in a race against time to put an end to the ruthless crime spree before the killer strikes again. The following report is based on police records, and most of the footage has never been seen before until now. On April 9, 2018, dispatchers in Lee County, Florida receive a call from a motel manager with reports of a chilling discovery. The manager explained that several units were experiencing a plumbing issue, and every other unit had been checked except for room 404. Too afraid to investigate alone, the manager asked residents in the neighboring rooms to peek inside. Brave volunteers came forward to help, unaware of the nightmare waiting for them on the other side of the door. Officers quickly arrived to find a woman lying on the bathroom floor with what appeared to be 2 gunshot wounds. A towel had been draped over her body, and the air conditioning was lowered to a frigid temperature of 61 degrees. The guest bedroom showed signs of use, and multiple wine bottles along with dishes piled in the sink indicated another guest may have been staying there. Whoever it may have been was nowhere to be found. Police discovered that room 404 was rented by 59-year-old Pamela Hutchinson, who was captured on surveillance checking into the Marina Village condominium 6 days ago on April 3rd. Pamela reaches into a small silver purse, which was later discovered in her motel room. However, her credit cards and identification were missing. More importantly, she checks into the motel alone, raising questions about who was in the room with her. Searching for answers, investigators continue reviewing the tapes, unaware of the unnerving mystery that's about to unfold. At 3:44 p.m., Pamela pulls into the parking lot of Marina Village in a white Acura with Florida license plates. Shortly after checking in, Pamela exits the elevator and heads to room 404 by herself. However, the following day, she's no longer alone. As she approaches the elevator at 8:13 p.m. on April 4th, she's now accompanied by another woman who bears a striking resemblance to Pamela. They appear about the same age, height, and build. They're seen again the following day at 12:45 a.m. on April 5th, entering the elevator and once again heading toward the room. Further investigation revealed that Pamela was traveling to Fort Myers Beach for a funeral to be with her friend, who was scattering the ashes of her late husband. The friend last saw Pamela at lunch on Wednesday, April 4th, and later received a text saying she'd extended her stay to April 5th. However, when she sent a text to Pamela at 10 p.m. on Thursday, she received no response. Surveillance footage shows the unknown woman meeting with Pamela at a restaurant on April 5th at 5:14 p.m. They share a high five, engage in lively conversation, and have a few drinks at the bar. Over 2 hours later, Pamela pays for her meal with a credit card, while the other woman pays in cash. They leave the restaurant at 7:43 p.m. and are seen exiting the elevator and heading toward Pamela's room together. Pamela would never be seen alive again. The answers to what happened to Pamela are with the other woman, but she is now missing. As investigators review more footage, they note that on April 5th at 8:30 p.m., just 45 minutes after leaving the restaurant together, the unknown woman emerges from the room alone. Officers note that she appears distraught, upset, and possibly crying. As they continue observing the footage, the woman's next actions leave investigators deeply suspicious of her involvement. On the morning of April 6th at 6 o'clock a.m., the suspect heads to the elevator, carrying the same purple luggage bag that Pamela had been seen with earlier. 2 hours later, at 8:30 a.m., a woman claiming to be Pamela extends her stay for 3 additional days. She provides a credit card over the phone, but oddly, the card doesn't match the one used for the reservation. Minutes later, the suspect begins making several trips to and from the parking lot. Pamela's car is seen backing into a space in front of a white Cadillac Escalade. The suspect then begins to transfer items from the Escalade to the Acura. The Escalade leaves the parking lot at 12:42 p.m., but the suspect returns on foot nearly an hour later at 1:32 p.m., where she stays for several hours. Finally, on April 6th at 1:51 p.m., she heads for the parking lot and is seen driving away in Pamela's white Acura, leaving her body to be discovered 3 days later. The suspect has vanished without a trace, and as there's no record of her staying at the motel, her identity remains a mystery. Investigators are left with many haunting questions. Who is this woman, and what role could she have played in Pamela's death? The answers may lie over 1,000 miles away, where an unfolding investigation reveals shocking connections between the cases, far more twisted than anyone could have imagined. 2 weeks earlier, on March 23, 2018, a call is placed to the Dodge County Sheriff's Office in Blooming Prairie, Minnesota, where uneasy concerns soon lead to an alarming discovery. Could I speak with a detective, possibly? My name's Greg Oswald. We have right up to the point a missing person here, my business partner, and there seems to be something seriously wrong. Okay, how so? Well, I haven't been able to talk to him for 16 days, and neither have any of the employees. He's never done this. Dave's never done this in the 20 years I know him. He's very involved in our business, hands-on. Okay, and what is his name? David Reese. Greg further explains that the Prairie Waxworms farm is just 100 feet away from David's home, where he and his wife Lois reside. Thomas, the farm's manager, explained their concerns began 10 days prior on March 12th. Lois come down to the shed and told me that David was sick, and he would not be down today, and she also wanted me to take care of the payroll, because we get paid every bi-weekly. David having some health issues in the past, I did not think anything of that. Soon, David's co-workers became suspicious after unsettling differences emerged in their usual communication. The texts we were getting from his phone were not his texts. It just wasn't Dave's style. Dave didn't abbreviate, didn't punctuate, didn't. You could tell it wasn't him. Thomas, Greg, and other employees claimed David's text messages seemed to change around the same day Lois began telling others he was sick. He does talk text. That's what he's always done, you know. And the ones I was getting was like all exclamation marks and commas and dots and thanks abbreviated with an X instead of spelling it out and stuff, you know? Okay, and he doesn't normally do that. No, he just talked texts and it spells out the full words. Despite their concerns, on Monday, March 19th, 8 days after he was first reported to be sick, Lois assured Thomas that David still had plans to attend a fishing tournament set to take place the following Friday. March 23rd, I watched the live weigh-in of the Cabela's Masters walleye circuit that David was supposed to be at, according to Lois. When they announced David's name, I did not see him, and I became very concerned. He then called Greg, David's business partner, who contacted local police to perform a welfare check on David. Deputy Hoffman from Dodge County Sheriff's Office arrived at the house on March 23rd at 6:49 p.m., but no one answered the door. Through the window, he noticed the television and gas fireplace were on. With nothing seeming out of the ordinary, the deputy left, unaware of the horrifying secret hidden inside the house. We were so frustrated sitting there talking to these people about mental health. People are going to go out and check. I said, "You're going to find a body there. Somebody better look." Determined, Greg once again calls Bloomington Prairie Police. This time, Officers Peterson and Peach returned to the house. One officer boosted the other, lifting him just high enough to peek through the bathroom window. Lying on the bathroom floor was the body of 54-year-old David Reese. Though investigators in Minnesota would have no way of knowing it, the chilling discovery of David's body would soon reveal haunting parallels to Pamela's death in Florida. David was discovered in an advanced state of decomposition, with a green-colored blanket laying over his body in a similar manner to the towels draped over Pamela. He had multiple gunshot wounds to his torso. The window was left open, bringing the temperature in the room to a chilling low of around 30 degrees. The eerie similarities raise harrowing questions. Is this simply a coincidence or the beginning of a brutal killing spree? With many questions for David's wife, Lois, Minnesota investigators begin looking for her, but she's nowhere to be found. In an effort to trace her movements, they review local business surveillance, starting from the last time the couple was seen together. On March 11th, David and Lois both enter their local general store. David walks out at 9:01 a.m. and would never be seen on surveillance footage again. The following day, Lois explains to Thomas that David has fallen ill and would begin using David's phone to text his coworkers. However, as Thomas explains, it was more than the unusual text messages that left him concerned that something was terribly wrong. "We have a money bag, and that's where my drive slips go, and all our checks from our customers." Okay, I did my route on Friday, yesterday, and I noticed everything was missing out of there. All the checks out of the money bag. On Monday, March 12th, Lois enters Citizen State Bank, approaching the counter with a check from David's account, written to her in the amount of $1,000. The teller fails to notice that David's signature doesn't match the previous ones on record. Over the next several days, Lois would use David's credit card at several establishments, including a liquor store, Vandal's Family Market, and multiple times at the Woodfire Grill, a restaurant inside Diamond Joe's Casino in Northwood, Iowa, just across the Minnesota border. Meanwhile, Greg confronts Lois about the missing checks from Prairie Waxworms. I sent her a text that I'd been informed there was checks missing out of the office, so I had to call the county sheriff to report stolen checks. And if you know anything, let me know. So she called me back in a couple hours and said, "Well, I got the checks. Dave sent me down to get them." I got them. At that point, I said, "Lois, I need to talk to Dave." Nothing. And I said, "Lois, put Dave on the phone." And the last thing she said, "Dave, don't roll over. Don't roll over," and then hung up. On March 16th, Lois would return to the Citizen State Bank with another check from David's account, written to herself for $2,500. The teller once again fails to notice the signature and gives her the funds in cash. As her shopping spree continued, Lois walked into a fantastic Sam's hair salon in Austin, Minnesota on March 17th. Yeah, she came in, and she was going to be going out for St. Patrick's Day. She said that she was going to be going to Diamond Joe Casino, so she wanted her hair to look like Peggy Bundy and have it nice and big. 3 days later, on March 20th, Lois is once again spotted on camera at the general store, this time wearing the same hoodie that David was wearing on the last day he was seen alive. At this point, David hasn't been seen in 9 days. Over the next 2 days, Lois returns to the bank, depositing over $8,000 into David's account at the drive-thru before transferring the money back into her account. I'm just in awe that they would take a check from one company to Prairie Waxworms and let her cash them. That looks like about $12,000 minimum, $14,000. So they were actually the company checks. Yep. Well, not Prairie Waxworms. It was our customers' checks who had paid us, made payable to Prairie Waxworms. Lois would hit the Diamond Joe Casino again on March 22nd, where her unusual behavior caught the attention of a casino regular. Just kept acting like she was real suspicious on who people were and what was going on, you know? Like she wasn't quite sure of her surroundings, who she could trust and who she couldn't. Okay, So paranoid, basically? Yeah, kinda. Finally, on March 23rd, when David fails to appear on the fishing tournament's live stream, Lois steps into the Citizen State Bank for a final time. She presents a $7,500 check from David's account, writing spring trip in the memo. After the teller delivers the cash, Lois takes David's white Cadillac Escalade and vanishes. It would later be discovered abandoned on Fort Myers Beach in Florida. As a detective, you got any inkling if she's in an area you think she's just... Goddamn it, I don't know how you get away. No, nothing so far. I just don't know. Detectives in Minnesota and Florida have yet to realize the shocking connections between the murders of Pamela Hutchinson and David Reese. But a lucky break will soon drive the two separate investigations toward a fateful collision. 3 days before Pamela's murder, Lee County Sheriff's Office in Florida had received a concerning 911 call. Hi, there's an ATV out for a Lois Ree from Blooming Prairie, Minnesota in Seal County. She just got out of her car at my Florida house. I also live in Blooming Prairie, so I know about the whole thing. She's in a white 05 Escalade. Okay, and if you do some research, it's Seal County, Minnesota that's trying to find her. Okay, so she has a warrant. Is that what you're saying? Yes, for the possible murder of her husband, and for sure for embezzling charges. Earlier the same day, the 911 caller, Tessa's daughter in Blooming Prairie, received a call from a woman named Stormy Liberty, who claimed to be Tessa's friend and asked for her address. Stormy Liberty was later identified as an alias that Lois used when opening a cell phone account. She was gone by the time police arrived. And just 3 days later, Pamela's life came to a tragic end. Now, after Pamela's death, as one deputy reviews the security footage from the Marina Village motel, he recognizes the woman with Pamela as Lois Ree, based on Tessa's 911 call from 3 days ago. I do rental, so she had a little notepad like she was gonna rent, but that's what I thought. And then she got out and she saw me. I said, "Can I help you?" And she looked at me and she said, "I'm in the wrong place." And she put that in her Escalade. She said it was a 2005 white Escalade. Yep, pearl-colored Escalade. After being recognized in the surveillance footage, Lois is officially named a person of interest in Pamela Hutchinson's murder. On April 10th, investigators in Florida contacted Minnesota law enforcement, requesting a photo to confirm their suspect. And finally, information between the two investigations was shared. With evidence connecting Lois to more than one murder, investigators are left with the chilling question: is she finished or is she planning to strike again? While following her trail, those who knew her begin to share a troubling history with investigators, one that hints at a possible motive for her ruthless actions. My grandpa passed away and she got her inheritance, and she was so unbelievably bored out there at that house. And the only time she was happy is when she'd have the grandkids out there, and she had them a lot. My kids and my brother's kids were there a lot. If she wasn't at, with us, like her kids or her grandkids, she was probably at the casino. And I had told my dad, and I told her, that I was getting concerned with how much she was going there. And she's like, Priya, it's just something for me to do. It's fun, but I don't have a problem. She blew through hundreds of thousands of dollars there. I had no idea it was that bad. With Pamela's credit cards missing, investigators begin to trace where they may have been used. On April 6th, a woman claiming to be Pamela Hutchinson entered a Wells Fargo and withdrew $5,000 as seen in still images provided by the bank. The distinctive white hat, sunglasses, and blue shirt are the same clothes she was wearing in the surveillance footage at Marina Village. So does she have a gambling problem or? Absolutely, $400,000 worth 2 years ago. How much? $400,000 stolen out of a trust that belonged to her dad and brothers and sisters that she was managing. Did you say $400,000? Yes, sir. As investigators continue to follow Lois' trail, receipts show that she withdrew $1,500 from an ATM on April 7th, one day after leaving Marina Village and Pamela's stolen car. How did he make it so she couldn't have any money, do you know? Well, I think the last go around, you gotta read between the lines with me. This is just conversation between Dave and I. I know all credit cards were taken away. I know she had no bank account. She wasn't a signature on any of his accounts. Investigators also discovered that Lois had recently checked into the Hilton Hotel in Ocala, Florida for a day, using Pamela's credit cards and forging her signature on the room service receipts. When all the money stuff came up after he realized that she has a bad gambling problem, and she went through all that money, like she was put on lockdown, like she couldn't have access to any money. And I told her many times, like, I understand why my dad was doing that. I get that. But I just told her that she should just, like come live with me or my brother, because it wasn't like a good situation to be in for either one of them. Brianna further explains that the financial issues Lois faced as a result of her gambling problem led to an attempt to take her own life 2 years prior. So my dad found out about something probably money related, I'm guessing. And he was yelling at her, and he said a bunch of awful things to her. And then he left to go to the bank. And she said that she just felt like it would. She just didn't want to deal with it anymore. As Brianna continues to explain Lois's financial troubles, she recalls a recent situation involving her disabled sister, Kim, that landed her in legal trouble. My mom actually took care of my aunt for like 2 or 3 years. She lived with her and was really, really, really awesome. And did everything by the book that she was supposed to. And when she got into gambling, I think she took some money from my aunt Kim. They were going back and forth. My mom skipped the court thing. Her lawyer was gonna settle for like $30,000. But then my mom, like her behavior, she just doesn't address anything. She just pretends like it doesn't happen. So she didn't go to court. And because she didn't, they put like a full judgment to like $100,000, I think, that they're trying to get from. Yeah. Though Lois's alleged gambling history provides valuable insight for the detectives, they still have yet to establish her current whereabouts or the driving factor behind this horrific crime spree. With Lois's location and her motive still unclear, the fear that she may be armed, dangerous, and hunting for a new victim fuels their efforts as they continue following her trail. On April 8th, one day before Pamela's body was discovered, Lois attempted to use Pamela's credit card at an ATM in Quincy, Louisiana, but the transaction was declined. Investigators learned that Lois then traveled to another casino in Louisiana and won a $1,500 jackpot. As the interviews continue, one investigator brings up a possible concern that may make finding Lois an even more challenging endeavor. I was just wondering if she could make it to where she looked something different with makeup beyond the hair color, but she had kind of a talent of, what do you call the people out there? Oh, makeup artist? Makeup artist, yes. But I think that she was skilled enough with makeup that she could make herself look a little different. But I would say with a gambling problem, and now she's got time on her hands, she'll be at a casino. However, Lois' son, Billy, has a far more grim expectation for how this fugitive search may end. Based off her past actions, I'd say, finding her alive probably isn't very good, as sick as that sounds. Right. She's obviously tried to do it before. I think this is a little bit more serious than that was spending money. Right. You think she has any means of doing that or of hurting herself? Yeah, if she killed my dad. At 11:16 p.m. on April 8th, Pamela's stolen Acura is seen traveling westbound on Interstate 10 in Lafayette, Louisiana, and once more on a license plate reader in Texas before the trail goes cold. With Lois continuing to cross state lines, a U.S. Marshals task force takes over the investigation and issues a bolo for Lois Ree. She's now wanted for 2 murders, grand theft auto, financial theft, and identity theft. As the case gains national attention through widespread media coverage, she earns the nickname Killer Grandma. News outlets nationwide ask anyone who sees Lois or her vehicle to come forward. When a promising tip brings investigators one step closer to ending her reign of terror, one question remains: can they get to her before she disappears once again? At 6:58 p.m. on April 19th, over a week since she was last spotted on traffic cameras, Lois enters Dirty AL's restaurant on South Padre Island in Texas, just 30 miles from the Mexican border. She lingers upon entering, taking a moment to look at the posted menu near the main cash register. It isn't long before an employee sees Lois and stands watch. As she suddenly makes for the exit, the 2 male employees briefly converse before following her. The man takes down her license plate and local authorities are contacted. Police arrive at 7:50 p.m., nearly an hour after she left the building. It seems as though she slipped away once more. It's a devastating blow to their search, but in a shocking twist of events, while officers wait for someone who can show them the surveillance footage, they begin to search the conjoined parking lot and spot the stolen car at the restaurant next door. They enter the restaurant and find Lois sitting at the bar, talking with an unknown male, but wait for backup before moving in for the arrest. At 8:25 p.m. on April 19th, multiple officers move in and finally make an arrest, unaware of just how close Lois may have come to claiming a third victim. With Lois now in custody, one chilling question remains unanswered. What drove Lois to commit not one, but two brutal acts of murder? According to the man she was with, he and his friend met Lois at Padre Rita's Grill. She told them she was staying next door at the Motel 6, and was a widow searching for a place to live in South Padre. The jaw-dropping evidence in her motel room will later be found in a search by investigators. For now, the man explains that he and a friend went with Lois on April 17th for drinks before dropping her off at her motel. Both men found Lois to be completely normal, never witnessing any emotional breakdowns or outbursts, with one mentioning she was even flirting with him. Okay, this one right here? Okay, it's not really your car. Okay, you want to run it real quick. It's out of Minnesota, isn't it? It's out of Minnesota? Yes, sir. Yeah, but the warrant, I do believe, might be out of Florida. I didn't get a chance to even look at our stuff. Yeah, I don't know how that is. Lisa, do you want to? I'm on a train. I'll get my cuffs back when we get there. Yeah, just go ahead and grab your unit and follow them to the station. When news of her arrest broke, a woman came forward with a harrowing story. She told investigators that while eating alone at a restaurant on the island, she befriended a woman who identified herself as LaDonna, who was recently widowed and spending time away from her family to grieve. They met again for drinks on April 15th. The woman allowed LaDonna to come home with her, letting her stay in her guest bedroom. They had plans to meet again on Friday, April 20th, just one day after her arrest, where she learned LaDonna was Lois Ree. When investigators from Minnesota and Florida learn of her arrest, they fly to Texas to meet with Lois for an interrogation. However, Lois invokes Miranda rights and asks for a lawyer. Eventually, Lois will break her silence and recount the shocking details of her final moments with David and her motives for pulling the trigger. For now, Lois raises an unusual concern. I'm sorry, will they put me in a room that has a cot or something? When you come to Florida, for 2 weeks, I'll sit in that bed? No, I believe you're going to be transferred to a sheriff's office in the area. Okay, you'll have to see a judge, I think, for extradition purposes in the morning, a magistrate. And then from there, you'll be going to a sheriff's office where they'll house you until we come pick you up. And they'll be able to answer some of those questions that you might have while you're there. We just don't, we're not from here. So if you do have some of those concerns, when you go downstairs, I would surely ask. The snow would be better for my edema and my blood pressure, like they said. It would probably be better if you ate some food too. Yeah, but if we were to go to the hospital and have an attack, it'd be worse. Well, for sure. All right, that's why I'm eating you crackers right now. That's fine. One final question from Lois leads to a shocking revelation as she learns the truth of just how far her notoriety has spread. All right, I guess one question I have is, do my kids know I'm alive and they're here? Yes, from what I don't know if you know this or not, but your whole story has been national news, okay? It broke last night. It broke last night that you were arrested in South Padre Island, that you're alive and well, and that you were found by the U.S. Marshals and the local police department here. Okay, so they know. I don't personally know that they know, but I can tell you that every local news media outlet nationwide has picked up the story. Before searching Lois' motel room, investigators spoke with an employee of Motel 6. She says Lois claimed to be a victim of domestic violence, hiding from her husband, who was a cop. When she next saw her, she appeared to be completely different, even dressing more provocatively. During one conversation, she heard Lois say, "I need a sugar daddy," before asking about another customer seen driving an expensive vehicle, raising unsettling questions about her future plans. A search of her motel room uncovered a mountain of evidence among the discoveries as a white towel wrapped around a pair of sunglasses, previously seen to be worn by Pamela. Lois' distinctive white hat, earlier seen to be worn as she withdrew $5,000 using Pamela's identity, is located on a pile of clothing. They also locate credit cards and checkbooks belonging to both David and Pamela, along with Pamela's luggage. A road atlas is found and tucked within its pages as a brochure for a casino in Eagle Pass, Texas. They also uncover Pamela's driver's license and finally 2 loaded firearms. With a mountain of evidence against her, Lois is extradited to Florida and held without bond to face charges for the murder of 59-year-old Pamela Hutchinson. To avoid the death penalty, Lois pleaded guilty on December 17, 2019 to 1 count of first-degree murder, grand theft of a motor vehicle, grand theft of property, and criminal identity theft. She later returned to Minnesota to face charges for the murder of 54-year-old David Ree. At a hearing on August 11, 2020 in the auditorium of a Minnesota high school. After delays due to coronavirus, she pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and shared with the judge her version of what happened on the fateful night of March 5, 2018. According to Lois, she and David had a heated argument following their grandson's basketball game. She claims David handed her a loaded firearm, encouraged her to turn it on herself and take her own life, saying, "Maybe you will get it right this time." In her own words, she explains, "He was right in front of me, and I looked right at his heart, and I pulled the trigger." However, this is based solely on Lois' account, and David will never have the opportunity to confirm or deny her claim. As for Pamela, Lois never provides a reason for taking her life. For both murders, Lois Ree was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She's currently serving both life sentences concurrently at the Shakopee Correctional Facility in Minnesota. Case 6. The first footage was recorded on July 5, 2014 of a casually dressed Brady, wearing what appears to be a tank top and boxers. As he scratches himself, he appears to be thinking of how to approach his task. Then he gets to work, cleaning up what seems to be a rather untidy space. The area is cleared before our eyes with a kind of newly installed type of pulley system, something Brady brushes past. Then it's back to more scratching. Only this time, Brady is dressed and looks ready to head out. Just what Brady was readying those subterranean rooms for wouldn't be discovered until almost 2 weeks later. It was at that time, when he would be described as pure evil from start to finish by the Wyoming police chief, that the very cameras that had captured Brady's prep work would reveal the abhorrent purpose of his overhauling effort. Getting to know Brady isn't easy. Brady's was a sheltered childhood, with his mother homeschooling in between brief stints at small private schools. Established early in his life, therefore was a social network that centered on the church. In fact, it would be through the church that Brady would meet women. Gaining an understanding of Brady's personality is even more difficult as the dichotomy is clear. Despite plenty of documentation to the contrary, there are individuals who held positive opinions of him and who continue to wrestle with the thought of Brady perpetrating his many appalling crimes. To his family members and close friends, Brady was extremely generous. The consensus is that he always longed for marriage and children. To his co-workers and those who had the misfortune of crossing his cyber path, Brady was strange and sinister. Described as not a very clean guy and somewhat unkempt with an ever-present and pungent body odor. His roommates even reported that at some point, Brady had taken to urinating in bottles he'd left all over the house. He caused unease, with one person admitting that Brady freaked him out, and another going so far as to describe him as having crazy eyes. If you were to ask his apprentice on the job, however, this standoffishness wasn't altogether a bad thing. This is because when Brady did open up to others, he described his inappropriate intimate experiences and detailed his perverse proclivities. Yet had there been any uncertainty as to Brady's inner nature, his brutality during 5 days in July of 2014 would put that doubt to rest. It was in fact within a single intimate relationship that Brady's intenseness was encapsulated. This romantic partnership would also set the stage for what would happen when Brady's severe nature was no longer restricted. It was in 2001, when 19-year-old Brady was attending the Montana Wilderness School of the Bible in Augusta, Montana, that he first met Tina. He was almost immediately all in, thus establishing a pattern in his personal relationships that would continue. Although Tina lived in Canada, Brady proposed marriage to Tina. And during their 7-year engagement, he and Tina seemed to beat the odds, namely the distance between them. Of course, ensuring that they remained connected required money, a lot of money, and it was Brady's money to be exact. It's unknown precisely how much Brady claimed to have paid for Tina's many trips to Michigan and the vacation spots they visited over the years, but the $30,000 diamond and sapphire engagement ring Brady presented to her might offer some indication of his investment, financial at least, in Tina and the life they would share. Not that Tina didn't cherish this item of jewelry. In fact, she liked it so much, she allegedly refused to return it when she called off the engagement. This she'd done just a few weeks before the wedding, and after the invitations had already gone out. Following this, Brady claimed to anyone willing to listen that Tina had allegedly emptied his bank accounts and cleared out the 401k he'd given her access to. And Tina had done all this while he was at work. Although Tina would later claim that the breakup was mutual, saying that they, quote, wanted to end it before we were 5 years down the road and getting a divorce. Those close to Brady suggested otherwise. Tina dumped Brady, blindsiding him, they assert. What is almost certain is that everyone would, after the heinous events, agree with Tina's claim that apparently this last year, after the breakup, Brady had made some bad choices, which is certainly one way to put it. Brady had long been someone who seemed at risk of personal collapse. After chopping down a tree that had formerly blocked Brady's view of his neighbor's bedroom from his own, for instance, he'd become enraged when he believed the neighbor family was being too loud. Brady proceeded to shoot 2 rounds into the ground. Even on a more basic and less overtly confrontational level, he struggled with his social skills. His penchant for squeezing too hard when shaking hands had caused his roommate's father to warn that Brady was going to hurt someone the way he greeted people. In another incident, while hosting Bible study at his house, as Brady and his 2 roommates would host Bible study meetings, Brady had been showing off a firearm he owned when he accidentally fired it. The bullet went through the kitchen wall and entered the hood of his roommate's car, which was parked outside. Brady had run outside and pushed the damaged car into the garage before turning off the house lights and hoping police didn't show up, and they didn't. It was instead a neighbor who'd heard the shot and approached Brady, and for at least the second time in his life, Brady was warned that he was going to hurt someone if he wasn't more careful, and it would soon come true. After word of Brady accidentally firing the gun inside the house in front of the children made the rounds, parents stopped sending their kids to Bible study with Brady. However, his roommates were even more freaked out because when they asked Brady what he would have done if he'd accidentally shot him, or Nick, and law enforcement had shown up, Brady explained that he would have shot the other one and told law enforcement that he'd been forced to use his weapon on them when they had both gone crazy. These roommates soon became former roommates, understandably. His behavior following the end of the engagement established some disturbing notions that seemed to have emerged in Brady's mind. Brady spent much of his time online, with his roommates saying his free time was spent in front of the downstairs computer, and even his reality was augmented with role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. Brady would also take part in LARPing, which is role-playing while physically portraying characters. Along with groups of children and adults, he was said to engage in mock battles and sword fights. He also had an affinity for truly terrible poetry, and was obsessed with medieval weaponry, which was displayed prominently throughout his home. Brady was clearly a man for whom the make-believe meant much, and very little stretching of the imagination was required of him to render this virtual existence into reality. He slipped effortlessly into a fantasy life, but Brady's fall would be steep, and the fantasy world in which he landed was not one he could easily wrench himself from, had he even bothered to try. It was while at a bar one evening in the early summer of 2014 that Brady actually shared some of his dark inner thoughts. While inebriated, Brady spoke to the bar manager, who found the whole situation to be suspicious. That's because Brady wasn't just talking. In fact, he told the manager that he was acting out his warped thinking. According to Trey, the bar manager, Brady had walked into the premises close to 6 p.m. Then, over a beer, he'd started to talk about women. After explaining to Trey how Tina had left him and allegedly taken his money, Brady went on to say that all women are crazy. Brady couldn't understand why. According to Trey, they didn't want to be treated well. So what he had decided, thanks to a newfound clarity fueled by heartache and bitterness, was that he was done with women like Tina, who didn't want to be treated nicely. Brady had decided that he would seek out women who wanted to be mistreated. And just where would Brady find this type of woman? Why, Craigslist, of course. Between 2011 and 2014, the platform was receiving a lot of media attention for the adult services offered, and because several convicted murderers had used it to lure their victims. So when Brady confessed over a beer at Mulligan's bar how he was now only looking for women who wanted to be mistreated, he shared one additional disturbing detail. This item of interest was, in fact, so significant that it alone formed Trey's justification for calling the police after Brady left the venue. You see, Brady told him that he'd found a new woman already. And in fact, she just so happened to be locked up in his basement at that very moment. After Trey pulled Brady's information from his credit card, police made a welfare check at the Taft Avenue home where Brady lived. When they encountered Brady and advised him that someone at Mulligan's had overheard his conversation about a woman being imprisoned in his basement, Brady laughed and invited the officers inside. In the basement, he said they would be able to see for themselves that the young woman in question was safe. And when police officers were able to determine that the woman by the name of Melissa was of age and in fact unharmed, they thanked Brady for being so cooperative and left the house. But this wasn't the full story, and this wasn't the last time the police would see Melissa. Melissa also wouldn't be the last woman Brady met on Craigslist. She would, however, be the last one to survive. Their relationship started off somewhat rocky with Melissa in a suitcase in the back seat of his car. Melissa had recently moved back home to Michigan after living in New York for some time. Looking to meet people and perhaps find a friends with benefits type relationship, Melissa had placed an ad in Craigslist. Within the hour, Brady responded. It didn't take long for them to move their conversation off Craigslist. Melissa would tell Brady that she was living with friends in the nearby city of Coldwater. He offered for Melissa to move in with him. He also suggested that he would be able to come and pick her up personally from Coldwater. Before leaving to get her in mid-May, Brady had asked Melissa if it would be okay with her to travel back to Wyoming in a suitcase. Assuming that this was a fetish of some sort, Melissa had agreed. Although she considered the request somewhat strange, which is perhaps the understatement of the century, when Brady had shown up with a black suitcase, she freely climbed inside. After being placed in the backseat of Brady's yellow Chevy Cobalt, the two had traveled for approximately 2 hours until, without warning, Brady stopped the car and unzipped the suitcase, only to spray an unknown substance into it and all over Melissa. When she came to, Melissa was still inside the suitcase, which was now located in Brady's garage. What happened next to a still groggy Melissa remained somewhat blurry, thanks to the unknown substance sprayed on her, which Melissa would later believe to be computer cleaner. After presenting her with a slave contract, the terms and conditions, Melissa agreed, and Brady proceeded to walk her around the house. When they entered the basement, where there were 2 small rooms on the left side of the stairs, joined by the bathroom with the furnace room on the right, things took a turn for the worse. Brady suddenly holding a gun to Melissa's head while locking a heavy metal chain around her neck. During the next 8 or so weeks, the multiple brutal assaults on Melissa would be interrupted only by Brady's rotating work schedule, which allowed for the house cleaning contingency and the master-slave contract to be fulfilled. Scattered throughout her time in the torture chamber were outside visits. Melissa had even gone to the Golden Corral and met Brady's parents, and Brady had announced to co-workers that he was going to marry Melissa after knowing her for mere weeks. Their relationship is murky at best, with moments where Melissa consented to certain aspects, such as the night the bartender called the police after talking to Brady. At that time, when police found her in Brady's basement, they determined that she was unharmed and currently consenting, but that wouldn't remain the case for long. Although Melissa attributed much of Brady's behavior to their agreement, the violence was very much real. So too were the nights Melissa spent asleep in the dog cage, as was Brady's ultimate fantasy of using the taser on her. Although she never watched any of the footage, Melissa also believed the cameras to be constantly recording. In the early afternoon of June 19, 2014, however, reality would come knocking at Brady's Taft Avenue residence. He wouldn't be home to hear it, as Melissa had waited for him to leave for work before she called the ambulance. She would be taken to the Metro Hospital ER, and it was there that the Wyoming police officer would discuss with her what had transpired with Brady. According to Melissa, on the morning before she called for an ambulance, Brady had discovered that she'd been in contact with her ex-boyfriend. Upon this discovery, Brady had twisted her nose and punched her in the face, splitting her lip. When the officer asked if such an incident had ever happened before, Melissa shared that the assault wasn't Brady's first. Several days earlier, Brady had read her text messages and come across one that mentioned leaving him. Brady's immediate threat to Melissa after a brutal beating was that he would chain her up in the basement. For days after she broke free from the basement for a safe house, Brady reported Melissa to the police for allegedly stealing his property while he was at work. Like Tina and according to Brady, Melissa had robbed him, and she also apparently left him while he was at work. Melissa, on the other hand, reported the assault, but requested that no criminal charges were filed against Brady for reasons that aren't entirely clear. If that horrified you, Brady was really only getting started. On July 12th, less than a month after Melissa escaped, Brady once again turned to Craigslist, where he found the following posts. I need $50 by 3:30 p.m. today. I can pay you back later tonight, but I need gas and some mess quick. Everyone has bronchitis at my house, and I don't want to get sick. I'm 8 months pregnant, and my lungs are all squished as is. If you could help me out, me and my daughter will greatly appreciate it. Well, we're looking for donations if possible. Kinda in a tight spot, and we have a baby on the way. As far as the fun goes, there won't be any male-on-male action or redacted on me, unless it's my boyfriend. Condoms are necessary, and I'm 18, he's 25. I recently dyed my hair, so it's not black or brown anymore. Brady responded, and an exchange began. I can swing $120. Wow, really? Can you host? I can host. What are you thinking? I'm 25. Yes, you both need a ride. Where you want me to pick you up at? No, we can travel, just can't host is all. Where would you like to meet up? I'd like to redact it outside in a park around 11:30. That okay, can you? Can you make it? I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble for indecent exposure or anything. I can't go to jail being 8 months pregnant. It's cop-free, it's a park, but behind it are a lot of woods. No cops at all, not my first time there. I can redacted you as you redacted your boyfriend. Okay, do we need to bring the condoms? No, I've got a rubber for me. Go in past the baseball diamonds to the grass lot in the back. Follow the trail to the right till you get to the meadow. I have a dry blanket for us 3. Okay, I guess we can. Sorry for the late reply. We had to talk about it, and your messages kept getting sent to the spam box. What time? Midnight. Sounds great. If I give an extra 40, can I bear back? Okay, will do. Thanks for the donation. We may be a tad bit late, because the boyfriend is stinking up the bathroom at the moment. When he gets out, we'll be on our way. In an exclusive interview with EWU, 18-year-old Brooke in Slocum was described by her mother, Deb Hotchkiss. She was the sweetest girl ever. She would help anybody out. Anybody, she would help them out. She loved her family. She was a beautiful soul. Beautiful soul. She just got tied up in something evil. Brooke Slocum was known to show kindness toward others in difficult situations. Bothered by the homelessness plaguing Grand Rapids, Brooke, who herself didn't have a fixed address, would hold up a sign asking for aid only to turn over the cash to someone else so that they could get off the street for a night. Brooke was already slim and worried about her next meal, yet she would pack lunches for the hungry. A natural nurturer, Brooke wanted nothing more than to find love and make a family of her own. She was 8 months pregnant in July of 2014, carrying a very wanted little girl who she planned to name Audie. It is, however, difficult to determine whether Brooke believed that what she was experiencing with her boyfriend, Charles Charlie O'Piner, was, in fact, love. From the outside, it certainly doesn't appear to have been the case. Deb recalls meeting Charlie and her feelings about the relationship between him and her daughter. The first time I met him, I was very uneasy, didn't have very good feelings. A lot of times I would call her, she wouldn't call me back. He was controlling of her, and he always had to be with her when she came to visit me. So at that point, I knew it was not a healthy relationship. 25-year-old Charlie and 18-year-old Brooke's relationship was turbulent. While Charlie was the father of baby Audie, he already had 2 children and an on and off relationship with their mother, Rose. During the times when he wasn't living with Brooke, and even while Brooke was trying to win him back, Charlie had continued to be intimate with Rose. After a year and a half of Brooke being with Charlie, meaning they got together when Brooke was still a minor, Charlie discovered that Brooke was pregnant. She wanted Audie so bad, so bad. She needed her in her life. He'd reportedly told Rose that he planned to end the relationship with Brooke, but apparently feeling sorry for Brooke, Rose had allowed her and Charlie, whom she'd twice previously filed domestic violence charges against, to move into her house. A pregnant Brooke and Charlie were now living with Charlie's ex-partner and the mother of his 2 young children in her home. The sleeping arrangement? Brooke was on the couch, while Charlie slept in the bed with Rose. Eventually, though, Brooke would be kicked out, with Charlie following shortly thereafter. In July of 2014, Charlie's life was perhaps on the upswing. He was back working after being furloughed for a lengthy period, and by all accounts was doing well on the job. He'd even recently purchased a new to him, dark green 1995 Saab. It was in fact contact from police about the Saab that had alerted his father, Gerard Jerry Charles Aponia, to the fact that something was amiss with his son. When he received a phone call from an officer on July 13, 2014, to ask him if a green Saab found at the Gazon Water Tower was registered to Charlie, Jerry had tried to reach his son. Always prompt to respond via phone or text, this time Charlie neither called nor texted his father in return. Another 3 days passed. Charlie was still radio silent, and despite being checked on several times by authorities, the Saab hadn't left its grassy parking spot in Gazon Park. That was when Jerry walked into the Wyoming Police Department to report his son missing. Unbeknownst to Jerry, while at the police station's desk window, detectives in the back were being called out to Gazon Park. A body had just been found near the trailhead. The officer who was back at the park to check again on the seemingly abandoned Saab had walked the trail and noticed a used condom wrapper, and several smoked cigarettes. There was also a pool of blood resting atop a mud puddle. A discarded and upside-down brown flip-flop was located nearby. Concealed underneath some dead tree limbs was Charlie's body. There was an unnatural appearance to the positioning of the sticks, rendered only more macabre for officers on the scene by the human arms sticking out, as if attempting to escape from the makeshift funeral pyre. Flies were collecting near the puddle. The faint odor of decay hung in the still, humid air. Yet Jerry wouldn't be told that his son had been located. Charlie's identity first needed to be confirmed, and this was going to be more difficult without a head, as Charlie had been decapitated and his head was missing. Also missing, 8 months pregnant Brooke. The cops came to my house and told me she was missing. Okay. It took them 3 days to contact me after Charles was murdered, but they came to my house and my other daughter was here, and she called me and she told me Brooke was missing. So I flew home from work and they told me where Charlie was at when he was murdered. And me and my husband and a few friends flew to Grand Rapids and started searching the woods. The police told me that there was no need for us to go there. They already combed the area, but as a mom, you got to double check and hopefully you could find something. But we did not end up finding her there. In the very early hours of July 13th, 2014, hours after radio strike had made an arrangement to meet someone on Craigslist at midnight, an on-duty officer pulled into a mobile gas station. While there, he'd observed a white SUV driving past, but then noticed that the vehicle circled around and stopped across from him. When the occupants reached the officer, they informed him of a suspicious situation that had occurred at the park. While parked and sitting in the back seat, the teen's attention was drawn to a man in a white mask peering into the vehicle. They were so scared of this masked stranger, in fact, that the driver jumped into the front seat and sped away. The last thing he remembered seeing was the murky figure heading toward a dark car parked in the back of the lot. By the time Charlie's father reported his son missing, police had already started checking local hotels for him and Brooke. But that same day, Charlie's decapitated body was located. It was information gleaned from phone and computer records that led to the emergence of Radio Strike as a suspect. Officers soon began conducting surveillance on Brady's house, and since they weren't entirely sure if he was involved in Charlie's death or Brooke's disappearance, they waited for him or his Chevy Cobalt to move. But they didn't have to wait long. In the evening of July 16th, just after police started watching the house, they witnessed Brady backing the car out of the driveway. Officers followed him, and a high-risk traffic stop was conducted and Brady was pulled over. Though he initially responded to officers' verbal instructions, at one point, Brady started to reach over to the passenger seat. Despite being ordered to halt this movement, he slammed his door shut and barreled away. A brief chase ensued, but when Brady approached 131 to turn north, he appeared to lose control of his vehicle and crashed head-on into the guardrail. An even more brief standoff took place. Then a gunshot resounded. During the siege, several officers left the scene of the crash and proceeded to start what would become a multi-day search of Brady's home. The items located inside the house were not much different than those found in the badly damaged car, which was being combed through while Brady's body lay beside it, underneath a yellow covering, only his boots visible. Multiple tasers, knives, ammunition, plastic tarp, and a collapsible shovel were, perhaps unsurprisingly, found inside the Cobalt. Also located, which perhaps solved at least one mystery, was a white mask, the same one Brady wore when he first approached and frightened the teenagers, and then headed over to Charlie Aubonier's green Saab. When officers opened the trunk, right there on the moonlit road, they were greeted with the sight of a black suitcase. Inside that suitcase was the body of an unclothed Brooke, in the fetal position as if to protect her precious Audie. Though it was of course too late. Brooke's cause of death was ligature strangulation. A baby pink blanket was used to cover Brooke and her deceased daughter in the suitcase, but it was the footage found on the cameras located throughout Brady's basement that truly disturbed officers. Although the video recordings would answer the almost unspeakable question of just what had happened to Brooke during the intervening days from when Charlie's body was found to when hers was discovered in Brady's trunk, the answer would be more horrifying than anyone could have predicted. As a mother knows, Deb was aware that what would come out in a trial would only devastate her further. And as a grandmother-to-be who had a nursery prepared and waiting for the imminent arrival of baby Audie, that's saying a lot. 10.30, 11. It was at nighttime that the cops came and told me that she had died. and I asked them if my granddaughter was alive, and they said no. Making abundant use of the torture setup he'd casually prepared, Brady assaulted and tortured Brooke multiple times over the 5 days he held her prisoner. He forced her to smoke marijuana and put a chain around her neck. Her arms were attached to the pulley system that Brady was seen installing in earlier footage. Despite there being no sound in the footage captured by Brady's own cameras, Brooke's expressions communicate her distress. The tears shed were silent yet resonant. Brady later strangled her to death. As Charlie's skull was found in March of 2019 on a remote farm about 30 minutes north of Gazon Park, confirming his cause of death to be from a gunshot to the head, there remained just one baffling element to the entire sickening affair. The search warrant on Brady's house was literally being executed as his body arrived at the morgue. Detectives found many, and we do mean many, items of evidence. Listed are handguns and rifles, knives and swords, a machete, throwing knives, one long-handled hatchet. There are whips and chains, ropes and handcuffs, a taser, metal collars and restraints, even a shock prod. Add to these the assorted adult toys and condoms and unmarked bottles of pills found scattered throughout the basement, a human molar, Velcro skull mask, black Hannibal mask, and a dirty baby doll with a fixed noose. Women's lingerie, clothing and jewelry. Also located was a map affixed to a basement wall. The U.S. map, if possible, dwarfed even the most obscure and bizarre items taken into evidence. On the map, all over it, in fact, were different colored pushpins clearly intended to denote something. With Brady no longer able to offer any insight as to the apparently single clean and organized item in the home, it would be Melissa, his survivor, who would provide detectives with the answer Brady had given her. The pins, according to Brady, represented locations where he'd stashed food and weapons in advance of the apocalypse. Why this kind of planning and kits were necessary is likely to never be known. When news broke about the true horror of what Brady did, his former Beyoncé Tina spoke publicly to say that she was shocked. The guy I know and the guy who did this are two different people. She claims she wants to remember Brady as the man she knew, and not the monster he apparently became, saying, quote, "He was my teddy bear. He had mood swings, but who doesn't?" We wanted Deb, Brooke's mom, to have the last word on this tragic case. I was glad that he took himself out, because I don't know if I would have been able to sit in a courtroom. I'd seen enough pictures through the cops, through the information that they had, that it was just sickening. I got so much support from my community, from Saranac, from all over the state of Michigan, from all over the United States, and even across the world. I had people texting me, messaging me, sending me cards in the mail. It was just overwhelming, but a blessing at the same time. And every now and then somebody will send me a letter or a card in the mail, overwhelmed and blessed and grateful that they still think about Brooke and think about me, even though it was so very tragic ending. There are a lot of good people in this world, and there's a lot of bad people in this world. As a parting question for Deb, we asked her how she keeps Brooke and Audie's memory with her. They're in my house, they're in my heart. I talk about them a lot to my family and friends. I keep her still going in my life.